And let me welcome all of you, the honorable members. We also have the leadership of the Microlenders Association of Namibia. I believe the public is also following because our colleague from NBC streamlining this. So members of the public who are watching these discussions, good morning. I want to thank the Microlenders Association for responding positively to our invitation to come and have a discussion with us. And the discussion is really on the motion that was tabled in Parliament and on whether existing laws are truly protecting Namibians from exploitation by lending institutions and informal lenders. So that was the motion that was tabled in Parliament. Now, as a tradition, when a motion is tabled in Parliament, it's debated there and is sent to a relevant committee to further investigate the matter. And this is a committee that that is responsible for financial matters, which is the Committee on the Economy, Industries, Public Administration and Planning. So we are given that responsibility to engage with different stakeholders, get their input, and make recommendations to the National Assembly. So our final output will be recommendations that will go to the National Assembly, and National Assembly will deliberate on those recommendations, and relevant institutions will be given those recommendations to implement. So just to give you a background as to what caused the or what brought about this motion, Namibia has been experiencing an alarming increase in debt for households, and that's a worry that we all have, and I'm sure you share the same concern. And it's said, according to the statistics that we have seen, about 80% of that household debt, especially among the civil servants, because the motion was specifically concerned about civil servants. 80% of that is what is called payday loans, and the rest, I believe, it's term lenders. Now you are in that industry, so you will give us more insight as to what are the correct information, but or what is the correct information and the correct data. But that's more or less a concern, that there's a high level of indebtedness, especially among civil servants. You have civil servants that have a very low home take pay. Some of them, I understand, go home with 1,500 because of multiple loans that they have taken from financial institutions. And a concern that has been raised, which seems to be an enabler of that, is the deduction code, where various lenders have access to the employee salary, and to such an extent that even the minimum threshold, or the maximum threshold, the maximum threshold in terms of the Labor Act is exceeded, because many civil servants will have multiple loans, and it looks like we have a problem somewhere where we cannot really observe this maximum threshold that is imposed by the Labor Act, which says not more than 1/3 should be deducted from a person's salary. So that's something that we want to understand. What can we do to ensure that the people that we lend money to, I'm now talking to the Microlenders Associations, go home with a decent income, or go home with a decent net pay. So how do we reduce the risk of exceeding that threshold that has been imposed by the Labor Act? So that's one thing that we will want to hear from different stakeholders, but specifically also from those who are representing the lenders. There has also been a question, and I'm going to put that question to the association, to the leadership of the association. Especially for those that have got direct access to the borrower salaries, those who have got access to the deduction code. Why is interest still high I believe for those who are borrowing for more than five months, the term borrowers, I believe they pay up to 2 times the prime lending rate, and those who borrow for less than 5 months, 30% of that outstanding amount. So the question has always been, if you have access to the person's salary, your risk of default is almost zero. Why is interest rate still high? So are civil servants, for instance, not supposed to be treated as prime customers because your risk of default is almost zero, and therefore they should borrow at prime rate instead of prime times 2. So that's a question that has been posed by members of the public, but I also want to put it to you as to why is the interest rate so high compared to a prime lending customer. Because if I go to a bank today and the bank considers me a prime customer, they will charge me prime. But now, customers whose default or probability of default is almost zero, and I'm not saying it's completely zero, but close to zero, are paying high interest rate compared to prime customers. So that's a question that I want to put to the leadership of the macro lenders, because you are in that industry. It's important that we understand the level of interest that you charge your borrowers. So today, so in terms of our program, we have already welcomed the leadership of the macro lenders. Once again, welcome. But we have other stakeholders who are going to give us input. And this is a public hearing, so everybody is welcome to attend. And even for yourself, if you want to continue listening to the submission of others, you are all welcome to stay. But we have the Consumer Trust, for instance, which will give their submission later or their presentation later, and the Economy and Social Justice Trust will also give their submissions. So those are the groups that we have today, the 3 institutions or type of institutions, the macro lenders associations, and the Consumer Trust, and the Economy and Social Justice Trust. Those are the 3. With that, we look forward to frank, open, transparent, and solution-oriented discussions. Solution-oriented discussions. Thank you very much. I want to now ask my colleagues to introduce themselves before we hand over to the leadership of the Macro Lenders Association, starting from the right there.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Justina Jonas, a member of this committee, member of Parliament.
Yes, good morning. Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you for the submission, which is really sophisticated legally so, but I'm happy you are not denying that you are part of the problem, but rather arguing that we should not just single-handle point fingers at you, but to the bigger boys. Indeed, and we are not just pointing fingers. We truly want us to come together so that we can find solutions to these problems, because at the end of the day, you should be able to get these guys to come back to do business with you. But if you are draining them, sucking them, they won't be there to come and support you so that we can continue building the economy of the country. But other than that, thank you very much. My name is Ims Nashinge. I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody. My name is Hilma Ita, a member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to our guests and all the viewers. My name is Michael Mulunga, member of the committee and member of Parliament. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and everyone present today. My name is Martha Itope. I'm a member of this committee.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. our esteemed guest. My name is Willem Isak. I'm from the committee secretariat. Thank you.
Very good. So that's those are the members that are here. The committee is bigger than this. Unfortunately our other members have other commitments, but they have given us a blessing to continue the discussion. So don't feel that the committee doesn't have a quorum. So we are fully mandated to continue with the discussion. So I would want to hand over to you. I see my lawyer is on the other side today. Mr. Charles Wessel. I don't know whether you are the one leading the discussions. Yeah, so Charles, can I hand over to you?
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. Thank you, Honourable Members of the committee. It's an absolute pleasure to be in your presence this morning, and we look forward to making meaningful representations, discussions, proposals, and it's an absolute, as I said, pleasure to be here. With me, it's leadership of the MLA, Microlenders Association of Namibia, and although I'm in the firing line, I would also call from time to time on the leadership to make representation, and as far as they have something to add and to contribute. First and foremost, it is important to state and acknowledge that the existence of a national debt indebtedness is not disputed, is not denied. It is fully appreciated from the side of the MLA. As the honourable member has referred to, we did file a submission, I think on the 16th of April, where we made those concessions, and we made some recommendations and proposals within the bigger reality. If, Mr. Chairman, honourable members of the board, if you allow me, I would like to open or start with just dealing with a few terminologies, definitions, which I believe are relevant within the larger discussion.
Maybe you can introduce your team first before you
I will
go into the substance.
So. May I start then at my left, Mrs. Rochelle. She's the administrative officer of the MLA. So David Lev. He was here last week. He came to spy. Indeed, Mr. Chairman. Mr. David Levis, member of the Executive Management Committee. Eckhart, also part of the member, the chairman, and Daniel, member of the executive, and the fee champion. On that point, may I then proceed, Mr. Chairman? I think it's important to just get a few definitions on the record. The members of the MLA consist basically of two types of lenders, payday lenders and term lenders. And we'll get back to those specifics in a short while. It is important to put on record up front that those members are highly regulated by existing laws, the Microlending Act. They fall under the regulatory supervision of NAMFISA, which dictates through the applicable Microlending Act, as well as standards and regulations, the conduct of those microlenders. It is highly scrutinized, and I will refer this committee back to some of the scrutiny, statutory and regulatory scrutiny that is enforced on microlenders, registered microlenders. So I think the concept that we need to emphasize here is highly regulated, operating within a regulated space of microlending finance. a second concept that we need to look at is money lenders. Now, a money lender is a lender who does not meet the statutory definition of a microlender. And because a money lender does not meet that statutory definition, it finds itself outside of regulation. Outside of the ambit of the Microlending Act, it finds itself outside the ambit of supervision and regulation by NAMFISA. And we want to hypothesize that that may very well be part of a problem. Unregulated lending, unregulated money lending. And we will ultimately then call on this committee with the utmost of respect to consider this aspect when it makes its deliberations and its presentations. The next definition I want to refer this honourable committee to is the term loan shark. Loan shark. That's a term that's used quite often, interchangeable as a synonym. And I want to impress with the utmost of respect to this committee that there's a vast difference between what is perceived to be a loan shark and a microlender. A loan shark is precisely the opposite of a microlender. A loan shark is a totally unregulated, unregistered, and in all instances, all instances, unlawfully operating as a lender. No scruples, no regulation, and it's in that space we would like to submit that the concerns which this committee and which the motion raises are valid. And ultimately, when we look at regulation and we look at supervision, the microlenders who are registered microlenders are compelled to play according to a rules book. And if they're not, they are highly regulated. Loan sharks, money lenders are not. There's no rule book. There's no rule book. Thank you for allowing me just to deal with those issues. Honourable Chairman, honourable members of this committee, we have taken notice of particularly 4 questions which was posed in the invitation to appear before you this morning. And if you will allow me, I will shortly deal then with those 4 questions seriatim, and hopefully in doing so can address some of your concerns. The first question that I need to deal with is the causes of high household indebtedness. It is important to find the cause of the illness by way of analogy, and to treat the illness rather than the symptom by way of analogy. So if we don't understand, with all respect, Honourable Chairman, if we don't understand what the cause of this high indebtedness or over-indebtedness is, either within the bigger national realm or specifically when it comes to civil servants, then it would be very difficult to find cures. And all that we will be doing, we'll be curing symptoms. Only for the illness, by way of analogy, and I apologize for my simplistic reference. Unless we cure the cause of the problem, whatever is enacted or whatever knee-jerk measures are put in place will only cure symptoms. And we will have this debate in a few years ago. Memory recalls that this debate that this committee is currently considering has surfaced before. It was particularly also the basis for the enactment of the Microlending Act, because Parliament at that instance in time appreciated that the microlending industry needs to be firmly regulated. So there's already measures that have been put in place when it comes to microlenders and the way that they do operations. If I may cite a few instances and statistics to this committee. The microlenders submit that household indebtedness in Namibia is multi-causal. It cannot be attributed to necessarily a single aspect, or for that matter, a single lender. Indebtedness cannot be necessarily attributed to the microlenders. Then we respectfully submit that you don't do that. The indebtedness problem is not the microlenders' cause. It's multifaceted. And I don't, with all respect, have either the knowledge or the deep appreciation of what the causes of indebtedness in Namibia is. The members of this committee is far more accomplished to delve deep into those issues. Statistics that I could retrieve and which we've also incorporated in our submission is that Namibians owe close to 130 billion as we speak, of which 118 billion is to banks, 7.5 billion to registered cash loans. These registered cash loans, including the microlending industry, represents approximately 6% of the total indebtedness, Namibian indebtedness. 6%. 6%. Total indebtedness, 130 million. 130 billion, 118 billion to banks, 7.5 billion to registered cash loans. That equates to 6% of the debt exposure. Household GBT is around 30.7% in 2024, and it's the second lowest in the common monetary area after Lesotho. So 6% of the total indebtedness, national indebtedness, attributed to registered cash loans. I, with the utmost of respect, submit that surely is not consistent with any suggestion that the microlenders are the cause of the national debt problem. 6%. What may be causes of indebtedness? Well, according to the World Bank, we sit with a high unemployment rate, very high inequality, insufficient growth, and these factors drive borrowing. Borrowing is driven by consumption needs, emergencies, dependencies, medical costs, education, day-to-day subsistence needs. It drives the demand for credit, for borrowing. Specific when we deal with civil servants, as part of their deductions, their expenses include bank loans, mortgages, vehicle finance, retail accounts, insurance, union fees, maintenance. It's a complex reality. the microlenders play a vital role in affording access to credit to that segment of our society which do not qualify or who is excluded from bank loans. That was appreciated at a time when COVID effectively hamstrung our society. And one of the first services that was declared an essential services, not mistaken by this honourable chairman, was micro lending services. Because government at that moment in time appreciated that within the restrictions of lockdown and COVID, that the micro-lending industry is of extreme importance to grant people access to credit. $730,000 loans were dispersed in 2025. 88% of those loans were payday loans using the national payment system. Only 12% of those loans, of the 730,000 loans, used deduction codes. Of 958 registered micro lenders in Namibia, fewer than 10 has access to deduction codes. 730,000 loans disbursed in 2025. 88% were payday loans using the national payment system, which is a regulated statutory system operating through debit orders. Only 12% used deduction codes. To dig a bit deeper, of the 958 registered microlenders in Namibia, 958, fewer than 10 has access to deduction codes. Scribbles and highlighting, I will also make available after the presentation to the Secretariat a copy of my presentation this morning, which is sort of a condensed format and reads a bit easier than the submission. In response to the honourable member, I will then repeat that 730,000 loans disbursed in 2025, micro-lending loans, microfinancing loans, of which 88% were payday loans using the national payment system, effectively debit orders. Only 12% used deduction codes. So it is far less, the deduction code utilization is far less, 12% of all loans extended. Of the 958 registered micro-lenders in Namibia, fewer than 10 had access to deduction codes. So I think it's important that when we talk about deduction codes, we understand the economics of scale. And as far as there may very well be a perception that all micro-lenders have access to deduction codes, that's not the case. It is term lenders, it's less than 10, which have access to deduction codes. The rest of the micro-lending industry and the members of the MLA make use of the national payment system, which is a statutory created system and operates through debit orders. So when civil servants are complaining or when they are concerned about civil servant indebtedness, I would respectfully submit and request the committee to consider the scale of participation within the deduction code system by the microlending industry. It is our view that in order to cure the illness, and I again respectfully seek the committee's indulgence to use that analogy, as far as we refer to the national debt crisis as an illness, we respectfully request that a comprehensive national household debt diagnosis should be conducted. We need to find the problem and not just focus on a cure or focus on ostracizing any one of credit grantors within the bigger credit landscape as the problem. That would be short-sighted and will not resolve the issue. Industries that must be considered are banking, retail, the microlenders. Consideration must be given to informal lending, as I said, loan sharks, money lenders, payroll deductions. What are being deducted from civil servants' payroll? The Honourable Minister, well, the Honourable Chairman, I apologize, Honourable Chairman. The Honourable Chairman specifically referred to the 1/3 deduction limit under the Labour Act. Why is that not administered? Why was that not administered in the payroll deduction scheme? We must look at court orders. We must look at maintenance. We must understand what are deducted against salary. And we acknowledge and we concede that it may very well be micro-lending loans. But we must understand that from a civil servant's monthly deductions, there are numerous deductions that fall outside money lending arrangements. The second question, members, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee, if you allow me, is I want to respond a bit to the question whether the deduction code is an enabler of debt. Our position is the deduction code can create risks if poorly governed. On that point, Honourable Chair, members of this committee, I must say that this issue is currently sub judice before the High Court of Namibia, and the submissions are therefore done with the utmost caution and respect to the existing High Court proceedings, and are not done with attempt to influence or to participate or to answer to any of the issues that's currently playing itself out before the judiciary. The deduction code and the system that has been in operation for the past 22 years is not, with utmost of respect, is not a indication that micro-lenders are acting exploitively. I want to refer you back to the stats that we've just looked at a few minutes ago. Only less than 10 micro-lenders had access to that specific system. It is a government implemented system. It was introduced in 2003 after a competitive tender process. It is a government procured payroll administrative system, not a private micro-lending initiative. The service agreements were renewed annually by the Ministry and the Central Procurement Board over the past 22 years. And it's important to keep in mind, with all respect, Honourable Chairman and members of this board, that the Code holders to this system include insurers, unions, banks, and other lenders, not only microlenders. So when we look at over-collection from a civil servant, it is utmostly important that consideration should be given to the total extent of deductions. The deduction code, I respectfully submit, was designed to comply with, I believe, the ministry, the government's mandate on payroll deduction rules, including minimum take-home thresholds. The code is supposed to, or functions that the thresholds dictated to was applied in real time whenever an employee applied to a code and non-qualifying applications were rejected. This is all a government initiative. Government payroll terms, conditions. It had absolutely nothing to do with the microlenders. Some of them held codes and some of them can accordingly access, but it was controlled within the four corners of government expectation, regulations, and rules. We believe that any future system should heighten and incorporate and preserve real-time affordability validation, and must be open to or apply to all compliant providers in order to maintain a fair and ensure access. Currently, it's closed to a certain certain participants. We believe from the micro-lending industry, if a future system is considered or debated, it should be open to all service providers. Honourable Chairman, that's our comments on the payroll deduction aspect. Question 3, with your permission, which we like to deal with, is the adequacy of the regulatory framework. And that is very important, just to respectfully remind the committee of the definitions that we looked at initially. Microlenders being highly regulated. Loan sharks, money lenders not being regulated. We believe, and we respectfully submit, that a consideration that this committee must give to is the fact that there is indeed a regulatory gap, but that involves retail credit. It involves informal lending. It involves unregistered operators, like the loan sharks. They are not regulated. Or in respect of retail, the retail industry is currently indeed regulated by an old Credit Agreements Act. That regulation we submit is insufficient. Money lenders currently being regulated under Usury Act, we submit that that regulation is insufficient. So when it comes to regulation and your question whether adequate regulation is in place, the overwhelming answer is, when it comes to microlenders, yes, there's adequate statutory regulation in place. If I may draw the committee's attention to a few of these regulatory aspects. A microlender must obtain NAMFISA registration annually. Every year, a microlender must apply to be registered. And a non-compliant application is rejected. There's very few industries that requires an annual application. A microlender must subscribe to a credit bureau, perform credit checks before every loan. Microlender must conduct an affordability assessment before granting a loan. There's strict compliance, strict regulations, strict prescriptions in respect of a loan agreement, what must be contained in the loan agreement, how that loan agreement must be communicated to the borrower, to the client. The microlenders must submit quarterly and annual returns to NAMFISA, quarterly and annual returns, and are strictly bound to interest rate caps, which we will get back to in a short moment. The aspect of retaining bank cards, PINs, identity documents are strictly prohibited under the Microlending Act and are met with severe penalties if contravened. So when you talk about the microlending industry and you talk about registered microlenders, you talk about a highly regulated industry and industry players. To the contrary, without repeating myself, loan sharks, money lenders are not regulated. And we submit it's there within that grey area, that gap, where problems may very well lie. They operate outside the law, they charge excessive rates, and with all respect, the loan agreement may very well border on inappropriate means and ways. We believe that the regulation, when it comes to credit transactions, is fragmented and distributed amongst various acts. Mentioned Credit Agreement Act, the Usury Act, and the works. However, in as far as this committee is concerned about current adequate legislation, it is important to appreciate that a draft bill has been in existence called the Consumer Credit Bill. Much have been done. This bill has gone through various incarnations and submissions, public participation submissions have been called for, and I can report to this committee that the microlending industry, MLA, has made substantive submissions and contributions to this bill. According to us, this bill is developing in a very positive direction. The aim is of the Consumer Credit Bill is to create an omnibus act, a one bill to cover the lending landscape, from retailers up to the microlenders. It's a very positive development, and respectfully submit that from that point of view, it is clear that this statutory gap, there are intentions and efforts to close this statutory gap. The Consumer Credit Bill will ultimately replace and repeal the Microlending Act, and effectively the regulation of the micro-lenders will be drawn into the Consumer Credit Bill, which is to a certain extent based on the same statutory underpinnings. On the question, does current legislation suffice? Yes. Emphatically, yes. When it comes to micro-lenders, no. There's wider gaps in the broader landscape, lending landscape, but there is concerted efforts by government to cover that with the Consumer Credit Bill. I will then move to, under your direction, to the fourth question, fairness of interest rates. Interest rates, with all respect, members of the committee, is not set by the micro-lenders. Interest rates are statutory prescribed formulas. It is not what micro-lenders charge. By complying with statutory interest rates, the micro-lenders effectively place themselves fairly and squarely within the regulation. Again, money lenders, loan sharks may very well place themselves outside of that regulation. And that's where the problem lies. And I apologize for repeated reference to this reality. But that's where the gray area lies. Not within the regulated space. Because there you know who must do what. It is respectfully submitted that interest rates must be assessed against the law, against product economics and risk. Product economics, we talked about payday lenders. What product do they offer? Well, they extend loans repayable within 5 months. Within 5 months. So that's their product. They carry high risk. And therefore, they're entitled to a specific 30%, maximum of 30% of principal debt interest once off. Term lenders, those are the lenders who specialize on loans over 5 months up to 60 months. They can charge maximum prime times 2, around 20% per annum. Per annum, spread across 12 months. But please keep in mind that those loans are between 5 months and 60 months. Money lenders, they are, when it comes to prescribed interest, they are subject to the Usury Act at prime times 1.6 per annum. And then on the default interest, it's a maximum of 5% for no more than 3 months. These are all prescribed, all the law. They are not in any way or fashion dictated to by the microlenders. Why is microlending rates not comparable to prime? Smaller loans, higher per unit administration costs, higher compliance costs, shorter terms, and specifically then also servicing borrowers which are excluded from bank credit. Payday lenders use the national payment system, which has a higher default risk, so there's risk in lending, whilst term lenders historically use the deduction code, which carries lower risk. Zero risk, we don't believe there's zero risk in the deduction code. It reduces it, but it does not eliminate risk. But the motion, the discussion that lower risk should equate to lower pricing is a concept that the MLA has no qualms with or dispute with, as long as those considerations are based on data, empirical data, and a review of pricing of payroll-linked products, etc., etc. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, it is the MLA's position that household debt is real and requires attention. However, and I hope that I've contributed to this submission this morning, to find that registered microlenders are the cause of the problem is not consistent with the facts and would be scapegoating an industry which is vital within the broader loan economics of Namibia. Microlenders specifically cater for that segment of our society which are excluded from gaining access to banks, including rural communities, and as already a highly regulated industry, and any efforts to regulate the industry more is ultimately going to result in those borrowers fleeing and turning towards the money lenders and the loan sharks. So over-regulating the industry, the microlending industry, unfairly regulating the microlending industry, ostracizing and branding them as the reason for indebtedness will have a converse impact. You will drive regulated lending into unregulated space because ultimately the need for quick, accessible credit is real. People, if they can't access it at a registered microlender, they will access it at a loan shark. And that, with utmost respect, Mr. Chairman, brings me back to the analogy of illness versus symptoms. We accordingly respectfully submit that this committee must find that household debt is a multi-causal and requires whole market reform, not a narrow focus on registered microlenders. Accelerate the consumer credit bill through proper consultation and implementation. Design any successor payroll deduction system with real-time affordability validation, open access and proper oversight, strengthen enforcement against unregistered and informal lenders who operate outside the law, and finalize and implement a national policy on financial education as a matter of urgency. Honourable Chairman, members of this committee, those are our submissions. I can only hope that they have contributed, added some value to this committee's tasks, functions and duties, and at least cleared up one or two conceptions or perceptions. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fesser. I like the fact that you're saying that we need to diagnose the disease properly, so for us to administer the right medication. So I appreciate that fact. I also appreciate the fact that you're saying that when we look at household debt, it's in the region of 130 billion Namibian dollars, but the proportion going to micro lenders it's smaller. I think you gave us a studies about 7%, and those with the deduction code only 12. Yeah, and it's important that we have we have the right perspective, and we all have the same understanding as to where the problem is. So before I give my colleagues a chance to ask their questions, so okay, let's start with again, just to put the problem into proper perspective. If I look at 130 billion, probably about 55% of that will be home loans, mortgages. Yeah, for the household, and about 30% will be cars, car loans. And the balance will probably be what is called personal loans. So that's now the global statistics. So a significant part of this will be our mortgages, cars, and then consumption loans. The interesting statistics will be, if I look at, because the specific concern here, although we are concerned about the global figure, but we are more specifically concerned about civil servants going home with 1,500 or 500 Namibian dollar home. So the specific emphasis is on civil servants. The others, as you said, they are lending through the normal payment system instruments like debit orders, top orders, and things like that. But there's this specific group that is receiving, that has got direct access. So if I take, for instance, a sample of civil servants, what could be a percentage of civil servants that are borrowing from the micro lenders that have got a deduction code? Because there seems to be an incentive there to lend, because the risk of default is very small. So if I take civil servants, for instance, how much of their loans going to micro lenders will go to the macro lenders with the deduction code? Yeah? Will it be a 60% or 50%? Maybe we don't have that statistics, but I think that's where we need to dive into that and understand whether, for us to really understand whether a deduction code is a problem, or whether everybody should actually just, lend like anybody else through the payment system. So I think that will be an interesting statistics to look at. So I don't expect you to have this number, but it will be. I think for us to really understand the nature of the problem, we will have to get that statistics, and we not want to point fingers here. Yeah, we are not here to point fingers. We're actually here to see how do we get to the bottom of this problem. How do we make sure that people still have access to financial services, but they are protected from abuse. They are, able to still have a decent net pay after, of course, paying back their loans. So that's really our interest as a committee. So we need to get to the bottom of that, and I believe that's also the interest of the industry. So I know you as a very good lawyer. You have represented me very well at different occasions. So now let's get to the bottom of the solution. Yeah. So with that, I would want to open up the discussion. My colleagues will probably want to come in. Yes, Honorable Nashinge.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Should I say, Council, for the submission. Really just to re-emphasize that we are not fighting anyone, but we really just want us as children of this country to come together every now and then so that we are able to find solutions to the problems that are facing us, because the problems that are facing these fellow citizens affect us in so many ways, indirectly and directly. But on your submission on the regulations, NAMFISA, I just wanted to come in there and maybe just ask, yes, you are heavily regulated, but I don't believe that the regulations are a proof that effective enforcement does exist, unless you are able to share with us that the registered micro lenders with NAMFISA, if maybe to find out if among your colleagues or your members, was there any that was sanctioned by NAMFISA because of the affordability violations, then at least I'll be at ease at some extent. But also, on your own concession on the unregistered micro lenders, perhaps if you could also just share with us to what extent have you colleagues gone hand in hand with NAMFISA to really deal with the issue of the unregistered micro lenders? Did we say they are the ones that we should call loan sharks? Yeah. How far did we go to really say enough is enough? Let us deal with these guys so that every one of us that is operating in this space should be regulated. And I think then we can say regulation in this country when it comes to your sector really exists. The one question I have is on the credit, and I like that you propose that perhaps we should move into a direction where we should implement real-time credit validation. Affordability, sorry, yeah. That's a brilliant proposition, because I think what we have right now, this whole thing is more administrable. What is the correct word? It's administered. And I think that is where the problem is, because we don't have a central point that all of you are linked to, that when IMS comes, applying with company A, there is a central point where that information is sent to detect that, yes, I can really be assisted. I think the fact that we don't have that becomes more a problem, because I think what we have now, it's a process, it's done individually. But then again, there is no standard that what you should go for. You really just go for, because you are into business. So would you then say you would commit yourself to assist and make sure that either NAMFISA or the ministry, we make sure that we have a system like that, instead of saying, no, let us go for the consumer bill or protection bill that we are looking at? Because my fear is that bill is addressing the whole sector. It's a wholesale approach, and it is not going to be specific, and that will come with delays in the process. What we need to do now is specifically you, so that you don't feel we are pointing fingers, we are accusing you. Because also with the bill, we are going to have individuals lobbying to that process so that certain things are not done. What is your input on that?
Thank you. Sure.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for that presentation, which was very enlightening and gave us a good perspective of exactly what is happening in the market. Last week, the Office of the Prime Minister presented and they revealed shocking information that the 1/3 requirement was working quite very well until a certain point of time. I think he said about 2013 or so, it it was functioning very well and all that. And from there onwards, everything just went out of control. It's where we found ourselves with civil servants taking home 1,000 or 500. But before that, everything was fine. And you clearly mentioned, and what Honorable Nashinge said is the micro-lender space is a highly regulated space, and you do quite a lot of credit checks and affordability checks, yet still we find ourselves in this situation. Now my question is, do you believe that the micro-lenders are doing sufficient credit checks and affordability checks before issuing out these loans? Because the lenders are now highly indebted, and of course not pushing blame on the micro lenders, but just wanting to find out if the lenders have really or are really doing justice in terms of what is required by law, which is doing due diligence in terms of credit checks and affordability checks. Thank you.
Mr. Faisal?
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. To get to your question up front, we just to repeat that statistic, 730,000 loans in 2025 disbursed. 88% were payday loans using the NPS system, and only 12% of those loans were deduction code loans. We can delve a bit deeper into to dissect that 12% into civil servants, and Honourable Chairman, we will submit a note to your secretariat on that. We can get the stats, and as far as that may be useful to the committee. If I then may turn to the honourable members, a question regarding regulation. Regulation is, honourable member, with all respect, is as sufficient as the regulator, and I think that's also part of your question. The MLA has excellent relations with NAMFISA, highly appreciative of their role, and over many years a very good regulator industry relationship was created and do exist. Certain shortcomings are acknowledged on the side of the regulator. It regulates a vast field of non-banking industries, not only the microlender. And I can assure the honourable member that from the MLA, it has always endeavoured to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And effectively to also, through its conduct, strengthen the regulatory power and ability of NAMFISA. So under no circumstances do I wish to be critical toward NAMFISA. They play their part, and they generally play it very well. I do believe that the microlenders do apply the affordability test consistently. Like in any industry, you may very well get your chances, chance takers, but that is at the peril of huge penalties, fines, and imprisonment. So the regulations and the Act do not exclude opportunist or predatory lending, but it is at a severe risk to the microlender, including deregistration, penalties, fines, and imprisonment. So your regulatory framework, your law is there. Ultimately, the enforcement thereof, we believe, is important, adequate, and I assure the honourable member that the microlending and the members of the MLA are part of the solution rather than the problem. The credit consumer bill is the current focus on filling this gap within the credit landscape. But the honourable member was right. And that is one of the criticisms, and I've expressed the criticism, or the microlenders have expressed that criticism to the honourable chairman when he was the Minister of Finance. The honourable member is right. The moment that you create an omnibus legislation that caters for every industry, you may very well lose the specific impetus and the specific benefit of a specific act. So it's a general act, which is the Consumer Credit Bill ultimately will be a general act dealing with various industries versus a specific act, which is focused specifically on the Microlending Act. Those criticisms have been expressed, and as I said, they have been expressed to the Honourable Chairman of this committee when he was the Honourable Minister of Finance. But be that as it may, that is what it is. It is critical that, and part of the credit consumer bill is that that microlenders, and currently as well, that we are obliged to be members of a credit bureau, which ultimately must create or must play that function which the honourable member has been referring to, a centralised database, real-time access and application in respect of indebtedness. So that is indeed also within the consideration, within the ambit of the CCB, specifically aimed at creating this central hub through credit bureaus and the obligations of microlenders to subscribe to those bureaus. Honourable Member, the microlenders want to be part of the solution, not the problem. We just don't want to be cast as the problem. We are not. So hopefully I have addressed your concerns.
Oh, okay, very good. So, yeah, maybe.
Honourable Chair, Honourable Committee members, I just want to add a few things here, just maybe from another perspective, because I'm also very much involved in the national payment system. What is important is that when you make use of Endo as a microlender, all the payday lenders are making use of Endo in the national payment system. There is randomization. So you are not sure if you're going to be last or first. So you have to do affordability. So there's two imperatives. The one is a legal imperative. You are forced to do affordability, a full affordability. The second one is a financial and economic one. If you don't do a proper affordability, you are not sure you're going to get your money. So you are forced to do proper affordability. So I just want to point that out. And that is, like we've said, at least 88% of the loans is done on Endo, because no payday lender, as far as I'm concerned, has access to payroll deductions. Then I also want to point out, because we must beware to generalize, and we want to be part of the solution, like we've said. And therefore, I must point out that as a microlender that is doing extensive microlending, not on a payroll deductions, we're not doing payroll deductions in our group. We look very closely still, as on today, one of the best employers in terms of low delinquency rates. They've got the lowest delinquency rates across the board. What that is telling me is that the problem is not generally across the board with government employees. It is specific employees that doesn't have or doesn't display the necessary personal responsibility towards financial discipline. And maybe a lot of what we should do is also to educate, largely educate that smaller portion, because that's the other thing that we must look at. Is this because I can't believe if they are the best payers, they're even better payers than the private sector in terms of endo, where we don't have a priority. Then it's not across the board. And we do see it. I do admit we do see some payslips. That is, and like our council said, we must look at the total picture, not only microlenders. We must look at the total deduction picture on those payslips. So please, if we can maybe just that's the second thing, we can just look at which section is actually over-indebted in terms of government employees. Then, lastly, around data sharing, it's a very good point. And it's something that's going on. There's a lot of actions going on in the broader financial sector to get. They first started talking about open banking, but we try to use this term open data now. There's a lot of things happening around open data, where it should become easier to share data. And for a person, for me, if I want to share my data with a bank, I give them the authorization to go and fetch my data. There's certain things happening around that. That is very important, and that will specifically address some of the issues around what the committee member has spoken about, the honourable committee member. And then, like the council, Mr. Visser said, we are obliged to submit to credit bureaus. We are obliged to do a credit bureau inquiry before a loan, and we are obliged to submit data to the credit bureaus already. We are actually obliged to do it to different credit bureaus at the moment, because there's more than one. That actually puts a burden, and we've been advocating for a form of a data sharing hub for a long time. So if the committee would support us in that in general, I think it would be to the benefit of the whole financial industry. What is important is that data sharing shouldn't be restricted to microlenders. If we want to know what is the obligations of person A, we need to know what is his total obligations in terms of his furniture credit, in terms of his retail credit, in terms of what his obligations are to municipalities, etc. Everybody should submit data. And that is a big part of the problem today, is that microlenders are forced to submit. So we can see the microlending data. The banks are slowly coming on, but there's large portions of the financial community that are still not sharing data. And that is something, the moment we have a total view of this person, we can do a proper affordability obligations are. You have to look at his bank statement, you have to ask him, you have to look at the credit bureau, and then you have to put everything together. And if he's not telling you the truth, you are actually, to a certain extent, you are sort of blind. You expect the person sitting in front of you to also tell you about the obligations you can't see. So that would be very important from my view for the committee to support us in that as a financial sector in a wider sense. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Have we exhausted all the questions?
Thank you, Mr. Honourable Chairman. Just on a member's question about the one-third deduction and the developments in that, the one-third deduction concept is also drawn into the Microlending Act. So it is a measure of, as part of the elements of the affordability test. And any microlender who does not comply with that is effectively in breach of the law. So the 1/3 concept was designed and established in terms of the Labour Act for good reason. It was pulled into the Microlending Act, and it's part of the assessment that microlenders must do. Whether that 1/3 factor is consistently applied throughout the rest of the credit landscape, that is the concern. And I think ultimately that's where this committee will end up when it looks specifically at civil servants, the deduction code, and precisely what is the general deductions that are made in addition to microlending deductions on a civil servant's monthly salary. So yes, part of our affordability assessment methodology, because it's captured in our act and we must comply. There's no getting away from that.
Very good. So we can now go for the second round of questions, and then we start wrapping up because we have other people waiting as well. So no, she was first. She was first, Honorable Mtenya, and yourself. Yeah, Honorable Nashinga will then come back. Will then come back to you. Oh, you also want to ask? Oh, sorry. Okay. So from Honorable Mtenya, we'll come this way then. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Mine is very short. Just, I want to ask Councillor, to prevent vulnerable Namibians from falling into cycle of debt, what measures does the micro-lending industry have in place? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Very short. Then we start with Honorable Mtenya. Okay. Then we come this way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I followed the presentation very well. And as we have indicated, I think the speakers before me, that we are not here to blame shift, but to get solutions. But I really want that this issue, we need to deal with this matter with the highest sensitivity, really bearing in mind that we have serious humanity crisis that are caused by these high debts. And obviously, they are happening within our systems that we have established. And they're also happening in our eyes, because we see these things. And the systems, we are the ones that have established them, and they're in our hands. So, you know, for me, Microlenders Association, your interest should not only be to protect the industry in which you are operating, but it must also be your responsibility to safeguard the socio-economic position of our people. Who are your consumers, who are your clients, and who are members of our society. So, for me as a member of this committee, my concerns extend beyond the financial statistics. Very much important, but our concerns really goes beyond that, because our concerns, as the chairperson have indicated, is the human consequences of excessive debts. That one is a very serious concern that we cannot avoid. That's why the question before Parliament really is not whether credit is available, people must, do so, but it's whether the credit, the lending that we have is really given responsibly and sustainably. I think that is the biggest question here. So I want us to really unpack at this point while we are here the role of lenders in protecting the vulnerable consumers. The role of the lenders, yourselves, in protecting the consumers, really, because micro lenders, they are regulated, as we are indicating, as per their establishment, but their operations, their operations must not in any way take advantage of the socio-economic vulnerability of the people. We spoke about poverty and all the aspects of financial literacy and so forth. Despite those challenges, the operation of the industry, as regulated as it can be, should really not take advantage of our people, more especially majority of them that are in debts are those who are previously disadvantaged. And therefore, I really want us to unpack then the question that I have here. One of it is, if we then are saying we are regulated, and in your regulation, one thing should have happened is the affordability assessment. How do we handle the affordability assessment? How do we give a person a pass, yet this person ends up, being given multiple loans from the same regulated microlenders? When we started with this discussion, there are public servants that have even shown their receipts, pay slips, not receipts, pay slips. And you see a list of registered microlenders there. A lot of them, Leteco, end up this Old Mutual, Old Mutual Finance, BW Finance, all of them, they are there on that pay slip. And then you wonder, when you're talking about we are working within the framework, regulated, but still the same members of your association continuously give and approve these loans to these individuals. So I'm really trying to say the enforcement from our lenders that are obviously members of your association, how they ensure that they operate within the framework, it becomes a big question. And to me, it's them taking advantage of the vulnerability of our people because of the socio-economic situation in which they're finding themselves in. And therefore, I really believe we still have a very big responsibility when it comes to this high debts crisis that we have. And I really also want to understand what disciplinary actions have the association taken, possibly either through or with NAMFISA. I think it's a similar question that was given here. When members of your association finds themselves beyond and have obviously not operated within the lending principles. Possibly the last question, Chairperson, is from the public,
Yes, please.
Yeah, the public policy perspective. Because then the question for myself as a lawmaker is, this industry, how do we measure that it's indeed, when we are giving funds, yes, people are getting the money, however, they are getting into serious debts. They are not getting out of debts. They are not becoming financially freedom. How do we measure the contribution of micro-lending industry to national building? I just want your take on that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Mtenya. Yes, Honorable Jonas.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much, Chair and Councillor and your team. I was just quick, Chairperson. I was looking at your website. Your website is Michael Render's Association of Namibia, and it's saying that you are acting as a representative of the industry. You are actually in between Ministry of Finance and NAMFISA, and your main goal is really to establish legislation for the industry. Am I getting correct? That is your website. Yeah. So you are a representative. At the same time, you have a responsibility to make sure that the legislation for the industry really speak to the industry. But the industry is not only the owners, right? It's also the consumers. Can we agree on that? Yes. So it's true, yeah? So you are actually regulating two parties, the one who's renting and the one who's taking, who's your client, yeah? Can we also probably also agree that maybe in one aspect, as an industry, we are failing the consumers? I'm just putting it so that I'm not done. I'm not done. I was just going through your website so that at least we start somewhere, and also to establish a kind of a way forward when we are going to discuss. We agree that we are not blaming one another, but we must also, I think, agree that we have a responsibility, because your introduction of your website is very strong if you look at it as we are going in this discussion. But we must also agree that maybe as we are also complaining, not complaining, but maybe we are worried about the loan shakers, yeah? And thank you very much for the definition. We can actually say it's people who are there making a living, because many of these people are disadvantaged in the industry. But we can also say that as a representative, somehow we are also failing to reach out to them so that they come on board, because loan shakers, we can call them SMEs. Can we call them like that in your industry? No, in the concept of your industry, because these are people upcoming and they want to come in the industry. I'll just put it, it's fine, it's fine. I'm just putting it so that we have a conversation, a very honest conversation. Because these are the same people who are also contributing to the situation where we are, because that's what we are saying. Is it not so? Okay. Now, let me come to my question. I have 4 questions. The first one, in your submission, you are calling for stronger affordability assessment, and I think Honorable Willem spoke about it. Improvement of consumer protection, enhance financial literacy, and also you are also calling for the reforms, yeah, the reform to the consumer credit ecosystem. I think that's what you are saying. But then there is also something maybe we must also ask ourselves. Are we, as a representative of the industry, do we believe that the weakness in the regulatory, supervisory, oversight and enforcement by NAMFISA might contribute? Because NAMFISA, I think, was here. Is it also contributing to the crisis we are, despite the existence of highly regulated, we are talking about highly regulated micro-lending sector. I think if we can talk to us about that. The other one is on social and economic impact. You are also arguing that the micro-lenders provide an essential service, and I think you alluded to us on COVID-19 that you are giving access to credit to people so that those who might not qualify for bank loans, particularly the low income, earners, for financial vulnerable household. The question is, what measurable evidence can you provide, or more probably talk to us, that shows that the micro-lending has a positive social and economical impact on borrowers, including improvement in financial well-being, poverty reduction, household resilience, entrepreneurship, and as well as economic participation. I want you to talk to us on that. The second last one, you have also submitted that your members are also providing lawful and necessary access to credit, and should be also, they must be differentiated between the informal and the unlawful lenders. That's what you are saying. But then you have also indicated that your members are providing an important service by offering access to credit to individuals. However, one may also want to exempt something, whether being a registered and regulated lender automatically translate into a responsible lending practices and positive outcome for borrowers. Yeah? Yeah, if you can talk to us on that, I think it will be highly appreciated. I think I have left one. The second one, I have not really seen anything have to do with client education, but the micro-lenders. Do we do education to our clients to say, lend responsible? Do we do that? So that when I take a loan, at least I know I'm responsible. You have also seen, as a representative of the industry, you have heard stories of people committing suicide. What is your view on that? We have lost, I think, public servants last year, I think about 3 or 4. Many of them, what are we saying about our clients? That's your clients now, committing suicide. Because if we have many of them committing suicide, we are also losing clients. Yeah? What are you saying about it? As a representative of the industry, you are representing 2 people, those who are lending and those who are also borrowing. Talk to us on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nashinge, since you were already had your chance, we'll give you a few seconds.
Thank you. I'll be very fast. Thank you very much, Council and your colleagues. Mine really, again, just few. You highlighted, I think, something that we all know, why we go and borrow. One, to consume. But I was just thinking out loud now to say, if I do come to one of your members to borrow to go and gamble, what is our principal stand and position as a sector in helping such individuals that are coming to borrow to go and gamble, then coming to borrow to send my child to university or to get a kidney replacement? The other one is the conflict of interest in the sector. It's a fact that some of these micro-lending institutions are owned or partly owned or 100% owned by some of the banks. Moving forward as a country, as people, in your view, should we continue entertaining that the big bank A, having already this plate full, but I go again and register to establish a micro-lending entity? And it's not your problem, it's our problem. But what is your position? What should we do moving forward? I just wanted to get your view on that, Council. The other one...
That will be the last one.
Yeah, the last one really is just on the causation slate, where you were talking about, you have 958 registered micro-lenders, right? And we are now saying, of course, with the you are not the problem per se, but maybe just for interest sake, if we are saying now, I just wanted to understand how many of the fewer 10 deduction code holders that are your members, and what is their average annualized rate compared to the members, to your members without those deduction codes? I just wanted to understand the difference. Thank you very much.
Very good. No, so the last one here from the Deputy Chair of the Committee, Honorable Ita.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. The first one, which specific provisions of the Microlender Act you think require amendment? And what legal justification support those proposals, should you have any? And the last question is, does your association consider and abide by Section 12 of the Labour Act when providing loans to lenders, in particular civil servants? I thank you.
Very good. Mr. Fester, so those are the questions. I want to add one additional question so that you can just, when you are answering and you're also wrapping up, you can also include that in your response. So we seem to be saying here that there are entities that are lending money, but they are not regulated. How do we bring them into the regulatory net? Because these are activities we don't know. It's a black box. We don't know how much money they advance on a yearly basis. We don't know their practices. Is it a lack of a legal instrument, or is it enforcement? Because I find it a bit difficult to find a way of regulating an entity which is not known, or how do we know them? It's just that we don't have a legal instrument to bring them in the net. Maybe if you can just clarify that.
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. Yes, thank you for your questions. They're all pertinent and they're all relevant and they're all necessary. And it seems they strike almost at the same concern. First and foremost, there's a debt crisis, which the MLA acknowledges unconditionally. There's a problem. Second concern is the MLA playing its part not to exacerbate, but rather properly deal with clients, their needs to borrow and their overextendedness? It's the second line of question. Thirdly, what is the MLA doing to alleviate the problem? And lastly, if we are not the problem or the sole problem, what do we need to do in respect of legislation? Is there amendments to the Act that we propose? And as per the Honourable Chairman, how do we bring those individuals operating as loan sharks or money lenders, how do we bring them in under regulation? It's difficult questions because, with all respect, they hit at the symptom. Why are people borrowing? Why are people borrowing excessively? Why are people, individuals, including civil servants, overextending themselves? That's the cause. That's the cause. Why? There's obviously a need. And if we have a frank discussion, with all respect, members of this committee, we must ask ourselves, why are people, individuals, civil servants, borrowing excessively? Why is there a borrowing problem? And unless we answer that question, we will not be able to find solutions. Because the reality is, the state of affairs are that people are borrowing. They're borrowing from banks, they're borrowing from retailers to buy furniture, they finance their cars, they're borrowing from the micro lenders, but they're also borrowing from loan sharks and money lenders. Civils up to recently had access to a deduction code which effectively facilitated borrowing. And in 2003, government specifically implemented this system to allow civil servants to gain access to credit. There was a rationale, there was a reason behind the deduction code. And unless we understand why people are borrowing, it would be very difficult to find a solution. Now, what do we offer in respect of why people are borrowing? That's a complicated case, and that is what we've presented to the committee today. We need to understand why people are borrowing, and it could just be because of slow economic growth. Our economy grew with 1.7% in 2025. If the economy grows, the income generated is less. Salaries can't grow similarly. Expenses, inflation, pressures, economic pressures are being stimulated. Salaries stagnate, income stagnate, cost of living. Because our economy is not growing strong enough. We're not creating enough income, GDP. And suddenly people are falling more and more under pressure, financial pressure. What do? They go to banks. But a large segment of our population do not qualify for bank loans. And in response to the honourable member's question about banks and micro-lenders and a link between those entities, I think the answer lies in product. What product is offered? Because our society needs different products. A man who needs to cover an emergency expense or education expense, who needs a bit of money now, can access a micro-lender, get that credit. Somebody who needs a larger bank loan, qualified, goes to a bank. So it's about accessibility of credit. It's about accessibility of money. It's a policy of government, and it has been a policy of government. And financial institutions have been put under severe pressure, political pressure, over many years from government, where government says it is important to get people into credit. We need to extend credit, because with credit, needs can be met. Economic improvement can be attained. And within this dynamics of economic realities, pressures, inequality within our society, our client, my client, the micro-lenders play an important role, because they grant that access. It's a travesty, it's a tragedy of epic proportion that people are taking their lives of over-indebtedness. Honourable Member, I share your concerns, I share your sentiments. The industry, the micro-lenders share it. It's a tragedy. But we need to understand why people are borrowing and why people are borrowing excessively. Micro-lenders are highly regulated. They must play according to the rules or they go to jail. It's as simple as that. But then AMFISA is adequately regulating, over-regulating. If you speak to the industry, we will say to you that we are highly regulated. Probably only over-regulated to the extent where we are words that are used as discriminated from a regulatory point of view, because similar players within the credit landscape are not as toughly regulated, and rightly so. The regulation stems from the concerns of the honourable member. Honourable member's questions. Rightly so. You have a large sector of contributors to the problem outside the regulations. They're not SMEs. They're not upcoming micro-lenders. That's not what they are. They are operating outside the law with impunity, with no regulation. What do we do? The only way to deal with this gap is to regulate, to create law. If you're not registered, you may not. Those type of regulations. If you're not registered, you cannot. If you're registered, you can. We must regulate. The simple question answer to a simple question to the regulators: why don't you deal with these individuals operating outside the purview of the Act? The response is simple: they are not regulated. It doesn't fall within our mandate. We can't do anything. We won't do anything. What is the microlenders doing? Before every loan transaction is concluded, it is imperative, it is within the law, the loan agreement must be presented to the borrower in simple language, in a prescribed form. The borrower must sit across the microlender. And remember, what we're dealing with here is not some sort of involuntary situation. You deal with a client, you deal with a service provider. You sit with a loan agreement in front of the borrower. It must be drafted in strict terms, prescribed terms. A microlender is not entitled to come up with his own version of a loan agreement. There must be a loan agreement. It must be specific in terms. It must be presented to the individual borrower in a coordinated matter, simple language. If the individual is unable to understand the English language, there must be a translation or translator available to convey to the borrower precisely what is the consequences, the rights and the obligations within the borrowing agreement. That is what it is. That is the law. We must also not undervalue the responsibility of the borrower. The borrower, out of his own free will, walks in and he wants to conduct a transaction. As Mr. Levis previously said, there are shortcomings, and this is a critical point raised by the Honourable Member. And in certain aspects, when we do an affordability assessment, there's a blind spot. Because all the indebtedness, all the liabilities do not feature and factor through to a centralized system from where a 100% assessment can be made. So, to a large extent, the microlender is also dependent on the customer, on the borrower, to say, right, this is what we've established, this is the test that we've applied, this is the formula, we've done a credit bureau, we have an idea of what you can afford, and is there anything that you need to disclose? Can you afford it? Because this is a transaction, it's a two-party transaction. So we must not undervalue the responsibility of the member himself. Can we do more? We must make sure that we strictly comply with the law. That's what we must do. That's what we must offer. As a registered microlender, there's a high duty on you to strictly comply with the law. And ultimately, if the law is not what this committee thinks the law must be, then it is for this committee, the National Assembly, to create new laws or to change the laws or to we operate businesses and we serve a community and we maintain that we serve a valid and an important role. That should not be conceived as the problem to the issue. Because within the law, if a law is created and you create space for people to operate as a microlender, people are going to practice as microlenders. They're going to operate as microlenders. And we are there. I vehemently disagree with the honourable member, and as far as any contribution or suggestion that there's a lack of contribution. There's a definite contribution. I'm unfortunately not in a position to give you those stats, but it just makes sense. One of the first essential services which the minister declared in 2000, one of the first was the microlenders. Obviously, realizing that within the COVID lockdown period, people needed access to credit. I would love to see if I can get instructions on those type of empirical data, and if the honourable member would allow me, I would like to supplement a note too on that. But there's no doubt, just the demand for people to borrow obviously indicate that there is an appreciation or a need to easy access to credit. But you can't treat the system if you don't fully understand why people are excessively borrowing.
Mr. Professor, we must now wrap up.
Thank you, Mr.
Your last words.
I'm relieved, Mr. Chairman. I'm relieved. These are difficult questions and good questions. But on that point, unless Mr. Lovis also wants to add something, I would leave the response to that. Thank you,
Mr. Lovis. While you're taking the floor, maybe you can attempt to answer whether you are able to differentiate what the borrower is going to use the money for. So whether the person comes there and say, I'm going to gamble, whether you are going to give him the money or not give him the money, or her the money.
The conflict, sorry.
Yeah, the conflict is hit.
The conflict, my response would be product driven. Microlenders has a different product than a commercial bank, and they, as far as they may be venturing into the micro lending business, it is mainly to present a specific product. Because let's be clear, there's ostensibly a large demand for micro lending services, and if we don't appreciate that, and we try and over or regulate micro lending out of our financing system, we're going to drive people precisely to the loan sharks and the unregulated. We're going to create an unregulated industry where people will still consume credit, request credit, but government will lose the regulation over it. Because remember, these micro lenders pay taxes. They fully responsible corporate citizens. They employ people. They pay taxes. They have social responsibilities. These are not, and we must change our minds with all respect from a perception where a these are sophisticated businesses, highly technical businesses with sophisticated systems, and which are vital to the economy. We're going to cause problems which we will not see. Under-regulate. If we under-regulate, then similarly problems will be created. So it's that fine balance.
Very good. Mr. Lovis? Over to you, Zay. Briefly, because we need to wrap up.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be brief. Number one, on your question, we ask on every loan, we ask what the loan is for. There are some micro-lenders that are giving credit for specific purposes, and then they know beforehand, they pay over to a third party, for example, for airtime or something like that, and in certain instances. But normally we would ask, because we have to report that, and that is available from NAMFISA, what the purposes of the loans are. So that is number one. Number two, I want to point out that by definition, a registered microlender took a decision the day he registered. He took a decision to operate within the law. There's a certain set of rules and it's very stringent, and he took a decision to operate within the law. The unregistered, I don't want to call it a microlender, the unregistered lender or loan shark took a decision day one to operate outside of the law. And I think that is very important. So the moment you registered, it implies that that microlender is trying to comply. He's trying to comply. Are there some of them that's maybe not 100% on par? That's possible. It's like you have a law that says, the law says you mustn't murder. But there are some people that commit murder. I'm not saying no registered microlender ever contravenes the law. But therefore, the regulator is there to enforce the law. And from our side, we expect the regulator to enforce the law. Because otherwise, we are creating an uneven playing field. If we as registered microlenders try to abide by the law, but other people is not registered and they're not, there's no follow-up on them, then there's an uneven playing field. So I just want to make that. And then, Chair, to the honourable committee members' question about what we do, what do we contribute? I just want to point out a few things very quickly. The microlenders was actually very much involved in creating the Endo payment system that is today very successful in Namibia, used by all financial service providers, not only microlenders. Very successful. It's something that we as Namibia can be proud of. And the microlenders was very instrumental. The MLA specifically was very instrumental from the start in that. Furthermore, for example, the microlenders spoke as the voice, because today there's not really a voice for the consumers in Namibia. There's no consumer organization today. So the microlenders acted as and spoke up against punitive bank fees. The microlenders, the MLA, spoke up against punitive bank fees when a debit order fails, very much. And eventually, Bank of Namibia issued determinations in terms of bank fees. So, furthermore, and I can say, just across the board, our loans are used for education. It's used for small asset purchases, things like a tool set, somebody that wants to go, and that is what happens. So we start a lot of people, even on an SME level, they are working for somebody. They start out with microfinance. Now we can say it's at a high rate, but the bank is not willing to give him that money. Smartphones, tool sets, etc. Education. I can go on. I don't want to go. And then lastly, we were from the beginning, the MLA was from the beginning part of the Financial Literacy Initiative, FLEE. And even today, we're still part of it, and we contribute towards FLEE. So, yes, in terms of what we do, and I'm not saying that is all. I'm not saying that is enough. I'm saying we do a lot. I think we do more than a lot of the organizations that give high up of being representing the consumers. If you look in effect, that the Microlenders Association is doing a lot to also represent their clients when there's unfair practices going on against them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I believe we are going to end this conversation here. We will have loved to continue, but unfortunately, time is not on our side. We appreciate your input. Appreciate your submission. Obviously, this is just perhaps the beginning of the conversation. We'll come back with more questions if we have more questions, because ultimately what we are looking for is how do we enable access to finance in a responsible manner, and I believe that's also your objective. So we need to find solutions to ensure that those who go home with a small net pay because of multiple loans, we have a solution for that. I think ultimately that's what we are looking at, while still maintaining, or improving access to finance in the whole ecosystem. So with that, I would want to thank you for your submission. As I said, we may come back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. Under your direction, may we be excused?
Yeah, thank you. You are excused. While we are excusing the Micro Lenders Association for 5 minutes, we'll take a 5 minutes break. I see the next presenter is sitting on the other side. So get ready as well. Yeah. So stretch your legs for 5 minutes, and then we can. So Michael, maybe this way.
What has it been like being a pastor's child growing up in ministry?
I have seen the good and the bad of being a PK, of being a pastor's child, but overly in scripture where it says in Proverbs 22 verse 6, where it says train up a child in the way he should go. So I'm very grateful for the foundation that my parents have laid for me.
He and I were such troublemakers back in the day, especially in church. He was my foundation, or he was one of the people that reminded me, my bro, you are not like them. You can't move the way they move.
Be in the whole pastoral journey. Not that I want to become a pastor. No, not that. I just really want to serve in the house of God. But mostly I want to keep holding on to my dad's legacy.
Rooted, connecting the youth through faith.
A show catering to your every lifestyle need. Confidence doesn't need noise, it speaks for itself. A touch of red, because every look deserves a statement and a signature scent. Unforgettable. My essentials, just the basics, gold, glamour, and a bit of attitude. From what you wear to beauty and cosmetics.
We are entering a new era with What a Lifestyle, and that is the photography segment. Additionally, we have something for you, gents, and that is essentials I can't live without. I've been on a lot of red carpets. My looks have always been a snatch, gorgeous, authentic. elegant, and serving. This is what a lifestyle is all about. Welcome to What a Lifestyle.
Every Saturday, only on NBC2.
The FIFA World Cup 2026, live on NBC2.
Some stories fade with time, others leave a mark that lasts for generations.
Poison.
Why do you need poison?
To eat that poison, to die, to finish my life.
As NBC celebrates 35 years of broadcasting excellence, Open File takes you back.
I'm Akila Amapendi.
To some of the most compelling stories ever told. From forgotten communities and untold struggles to moments that sparked national conversation, we revisit the investigations that touched lives and helped shape Namibia's story. What happened after the cameras left? Did anything change? And where are the people behind these stories today? Join us as we retrace our steps across the country and uncover the lasting impact of stories that continue to resonate years later. Open File, the pulse of investigative journalism, Sundays at 1700, only on NBC One.
Happy 35th birthday, NBC. It's ours. Every story starts somewhere. Ours began in 1991. From the very beginning, we have carried one clear purpose: to inform, to entertain, and to inspire. From our early analog days to the digital future, we continue to build. We have been part of Namibia's journey, traveling across the vast landscapes of our country, telling the stories that connect us. We have captured the moments that matter, the joy, the pain, the culture, the heritage, and the history of a brave and resilient people. Through it all, one truth has remained constant: it's ours. NBC has been the bridge between home and the world. Through our news, our programs, our voices, and our people, we bring the world closer to Namibia and take Namibia closer to the world. Everywhere, every day. This is more than a birthday. It is a story of resilience, a celebration of media freedom, democracy, and national pride. Join us as we look back on 35 years of growth, milestone, memories, and service to the nation. Happy 35th birthday, NBC. It's ours.
At the edge of the lake, rooted in fire, flavor, and connection.
I'm just
where every meal has a rhythm. Some songs taste like home.
These ingredients that are here, because we're trying to go as traditional pastor and clearling cuisine for ons Laafvelders. Don't touch that dial.
At Lake Onap, food becomes memory.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, as you can see, guys, this is the results that we are looking for.
Meesterlik, regtig waar. Daar dans 'n meisie wat net soos 'n veeprinses lyk. Met 'n glimlag so stralend begroet sy die hele gehoor.
I cook, you play, where great food meets great music.
When we are mothers of the church. We are mothers of the home. We are mothers of the nation.
We should be focused on the will of God and the purpose of God and the kingdom of God.
We idolize everything that concerns us, but God is calling us out of that and unto Himself.
As women, we are assigned by God to be helpers.
Yes.
And we can help to bring that about.
What used to matter in the world, because you are now in Christ, no longer pains you.
What does finding your happily ever after look like? Well, is it finding the perfect prince? Here on What a Lifestyle, we are talking about finding the perfect outfit. You can catch us on NBC2 at 7:30 every Saturday for everything lifestyle related.
Thank you very much. We, honorable members, we are going to continue with our conversation as we have just concluded the discussion with the Micro Lenders Association. We are continuing. We started with the lenders. Now we are starting with those who are representing the consumers. We are going to listen to the Namibia Consumer Trust. I believe it's an organization that is established to speak on behalf of the consumers. Today we are talking about the consumers of financial services. Mr. Gavasep is the representative or the head of that organization, I believe. And we want to give him an opportunity to present his submission. Mr. Gavasep, so you have the floor. I believe you have already, because you were in the previous discussion, so you have heard what the macro lenders are saying, and also the questions that members were posing. So if something has already been said, you don't have to repeat it. Yeah. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Michael Kavesip. As mentioned by the chair, I'm the executive director of Namibia Consumer Trust, which is a legally registered organization in Namibia, but also a member of Consumers International, where I also used to serve on the board of the council. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee and the chairperson for this chance to address. We have experienced a bit of a challenge with the computer program I used is not compatible with the ones they have here, and I couldn't provide my presentation, but I'll do so afterwards. So with regard to the question of if the law is sufficient, I would like to maybe highlight a bit of a scenario for the committee to maybe have insight into if that question can be answered or how. But upfront, I can maybe say that the answer to that question is, from my perspective, yes and no. The law is adequate, but at the same time, it depends. So since NAMFISA is the regulator, I think we would have benefited. We would have benefited from the empirical evidence. Since they are regulated, they require service providers to do reporting. And I think the discussion would have benefited from that. I must also mention that over the years, we have been here before, I think 2006 or 2008, when the similar committee, as chaired by late President Kenkop, was inquiring into the banking sector, where we also made similar presentations. And as from there on, the government, the stakeholders we've embarked on processes and established forums, such as the Financial Literacy Initiative, the committees where NAMFISA as well as Bank of Namibia chaired for financial inclusion, which was the advisory board that was chaired by the mentioned organizations. But the advisory board was reporting to the council, Financial Inclusion Council, which was chaired by the Prime Minister, and the other members were the ministers and of course the advisory council. So we are making progress. Unfortunately, along the way, we have lost momentum as a country, and I'm not so sure if those forums are still active. I think FI is still, as per the budget, they are still receiving funds, so and they probably are existing. But let me come back to the issue. Since NAMFISA is the regulator, and there are laws that they are to enforce, if I can maybe refer the committee to the Supreme Court judgment, I think it was issued around the end of last year, that involves pro-wealth. I think the late person is Master Potgieter, where the consumers or the service recipients took the regulator to court. They had a very difficult and a prolonged fight for the losses they have suffered. And the court disagreed with NAMFISA, basically, because NAMFISA was saying they are not responsible. They have done everything above board, but the court found the officials that represented NAMFISA to have acted in a very negligent manner, so much so that there was an award in favor of the consumers. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the law in this case was sufficient, but this law must be enforced by somebody. Now, what is that link? And the court was very clear. They said there was inaction by the officials that were expected to represent public interest, whether it's on board level or the admin staff, but the whole system collapsed. Now, the question to the legislature is, or National Assembly in this case, in the event the law was sufficient and there was failure, what needs to be done? These people naturally, I would have expected, I mean, at least from a consumer rights perspective, when they failed, and this is something the judges always complain about, that when the state functionaries or officials representing state and taking decisions and actions on behalf of the state fail, that, and if they are not held accountable, that is a threat to the legitimacy of the state. So the courts have now pronounced themselves and said there was gross negligence. What happened to these people at NAMFISA, the officials? Are they still working as if nothing happened, or were the measures taken to hold them accountable? I think that's the real question. If I can go back to if the law is sufficient. In this case, it was sufficient, but the failure was by the officials entrusted with enforcing the law. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, I haven't really had time to look into microlending. That's why I'm sort of general. Now, during the last 10 or 12 years, board appointments, and because it regards governance, and this is also the problem that occurred with this NAMFISA pro-wealth case. People that are entrusted with controlling the institution failed. What we see in recent years is that when the Ministry of Enterprises was established, they resorted somehow to consider certain professions in Namibia to be absolutely vital, which are lawyers, chartered accountants, and even human resource practitioners. to me, that does not make sense because most of these statutory institutions, SOEs, have founding laws with objects that clearly stipulate what they need to do. And many of them, like NAMPISA, is to protect consumers. Now the current board members on NAMPISA, they have two lawyers, even an advocate, and I think he's the chairperson. They're outgoing. And then there's a chartered accountant, also a farmer, and I think an HR. Now, is the thinking that for somebody to, because now if I ask the honorable members, for you to serve on the legislature in a committee like this, because you have arrived in this position through a process that involves elections, which is political, and since it's lawmaking, the requirement would have been for such a person to qualify to become a member of the National Assembly would be they should have either held political science qualifications or they should be a lawyer. That is the thinking that the Public Enterprises Ministry used. Because they are appointing chartered accountant, and probably the thinking is that they must interpret the financials, the audited financial statements. And then they require a lawyer, maybe to interpret the law. And the human resource practitioner is maybe to understand and interpret the labor laws and the policy, HR policy. If that is the kind of thinking, I'm not surprised that the Supreme Court found NAMPISA to have failed. Because as a board member, if you cannot read and understand the law, the financials and HR policies, you are not fit to be a board member. That is your fiduciary duty. So as such, this require, and if you look at all the adverts that since last year of the current administration, the executive branch of the state, they have continued with that trend. They require that board member appointments must have those. Even on boards that are primarily established to protect consumers, such as NAMPISA, CRAN, MTC, NSI, Agronomic Board, most of them, they require these professions. And that also means that they are completely disregarding the objects of the law, which is to protect consumers. So to a greater degree, the law is sufficient. But the problem is who is being appointed to enforce the law. That's basically where the problem is. And with most of the things the Margaret Linda said, I don't agree, but I think the question of what the civil servants and others borrow money for, what do they need the money for? That is a very valid question. And I think it might have to deal with the economic situation. Now, if you look in the Constitution, the state policy, it calls for, I think it's 98, Article 98, that the economy should be based on a mixed form. And there are various other provisions. Now, the legislature has prohibited the judiciary or the courts to interpret that section as if it's law, unless there is another law that supports that. And a good example where state policy has been used is the environmental sector. As you were, the state announced that they intend to protect the ecology. And they made a host of laws, like the Environmental Management Act, Public and Environmental Health, and the Water Resources Management Act. And they even went internationally and signed the FCCC that deals with climate change in the Paris Agreement, and the UN General Assembly, as well as a rapporteur on safe, environmentally healthy and sustainable environment, where the International Court of Justice also agreed that even if their legal opinion may not be binding on states, they have said that states can be liable for damages. So when there is a law supporting the state policy, the judges can interpret it as, because we also have the Article 144 and 96D that requires Namibia to respect international agreements. So maybe what the committee and the legislature could do is to have a law to look into, if that is still the intention or the wishes of the state, that the economy needs something needs to be done, then they can maybe enact laws to either bring this into Chapter 3, where it's important in terms of human rights, or simply make laws that will support this the state policy. I, for one, with regard to the possible reasons, and like I said earlier, we may need the empirical evidence as to why, and I think why civil servants and other Namibians depend on micro-lenders and loan sharks and even cash converters, where people take their stuff to be borrowed money. Life is tough out there. I think we need to maybe study, when people get this money, what do they do with the money? And it's common in research to, perhaps we can go to their dustbins and see what are their consumption patterns. I mean, the statistic agency, especially NAMFISA and others, can provide us with statistics as to the prices of goods and services. And Bank of Namibia is also producing reports. We can perhaps look at the empirical evidence, but I think one can always take an educated guess, and I suspect people are suffering. It's tough out there. People are simply borrowing to stay alive. They are eating. Oh yeah, well, some might argue that, okay, some might have problems, whether it's gambling or alcohol. The weakness with our legislature, where there is insufficient legislation, is the control or lack thereof of alcohol use. Namibians are drinking too much. There is too much drunkenness. We have to have a national policy on alcohol use. Namibia Breweries is a company in Namibia, but we have very stringent laws with regard to tobacco. But maybe Namibia is reluctant because it wants to protect its industry. But we have to look at the damage alcohol is having on our society. We have a heart division at the state hospital, which is good, but should we just keep treating people for symptoms, while we could maybe also try and prevent people from consuming too much alcohol, and the Shabeens are also too many. So, Honorable Chairperson, that is basically what, like I said, the system was not compatible with my laptop, so I didn't really. But if there are questions, I would be happy to take some. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kavase, for that submission. We will look forward to have your submission. I think we have already submitted. You have already sent out a submission. So if you have anything additional, we'll appreciate that. Yeah. So if you don't have, honorable members, if with the permission of Mr. Gavase, if you don't object, I would want to suggest that maybe we go to the next presenter because they are all representing, the same stakeholder, the borrower, and then we hear from the next presenter. I believe Mr. Irwako, is it you? Okay, so of course we have not met before. Yeah. So and then we can hear your presentation, and thereafter we can then have a discussion. Yeah. Very good. Please over to you, sir.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Protocol observed before me, the standing committee, media, and my team here. My name is Claudius Rerwako. I'm from the Economic and Social Justice Trust. I serve as treasurer, and with me I'm accompanied by young people from the Comrade Association. So when the motion was released, I worked with a group of young people. I'm young also, to prepare the submission to Parliament and to prepare the debate around it. Just hold on. Yeah. Pardon me.
Thank you. You also put him on the other side. Yeah, thank you.
All right, the motion was on whether the existing laws are truly protecting Namibians from exploitation by lending institution and informal money lenders. We all know the motion. We looked for solution around the motion and looking at the current laws that are here and what way to fix. We listened to the micro lenders and the consumers. So we're gonna give our perspective to the House, and then you guys can critique us and constructive criticize us to look on a better way. So,
Chairperson?
Yes.
Can I maybe address the young men, not to address us as guys?
Oh.
Yeah, use an appropriate language.
I'm very sorry for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Advice from an elder?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Very good. So please continue.
All right. So the debt crisis is caused by predatory lenders alone. It's not caused by predatory lenders alone. It is a system. It is a symptom of systemic economic exploitation. So Parliament must act on the structures and not the symptoms. The symptoms that we are having, the structures that we have in place are the reason why our people are in abject poverty and go back to shark land, to guys that borrow, that give out money, the micro lenders and the Shylocks. So this was, the image is, we got it from Titus Shitatala. He designed our cover page for the Economic and Social Justice Trust. It's the image is the land that mourns. So we are here to change this image into something that can make us joyous in Namibia. So we are reframing the crisis debt. The myth is that we must shatter. Debt is widely framed as a consequence of individual moral failure or financial illiteracy, implying that Namibians borrow because they make poor choices. That's a myth. I'll borrow because I would wanna have food at home. I would wanna have transport to go to school. I would wanna borrow to pay my school fees, not necessarily that I wanna buy a big iPhone or save up for a car. The structural reality is that for most Namibians, debt is structural necessity. The real drivers are the wages, too low to cover basic needs. The micro lenders mentioned that everything rises, but then the wages remain the same in our system. We understand that there was an increment last April 1st, and with this increment, has it become better for civil servants? The state infrastructure that enables extraction, we looked at, on the motion, we looked at the Usury Act. It is outdated, the Usury Act of 1968, Article 76, Act 76. It is outdated, it is 58 years. It doesn't speak to the current Namibian that is living now and is employed by the government. An illusion of choice in the credit market. So Parliament must see debt through this lens, not as personal failing, but as a policy failure. So 55% of Namibians earn 5,000 or less. So half of Namibians living at or below these income levels. 34% earn below 2,000. This group sits deep in the survival threshold with wages far below the cost of basic needs. So 1.3, which is 1,353, that's a full tank for someone's Land Cruiser here. So private credit fills the gap, funding food, healthcare, and utilities, not wealth building. So this is the amount that a person in Namibia gets now below in the 55% category. So the uncomfortable truth is that for most workers, credit is not a lifestyle choice. It is a survival mechanism forced upon them by inadequate waging. Technical team, it's my connection. Okay, it will come up. Okay. So the uncomfortable truth, I repeat, for most workers, credit is not a lifestyle choice. It is a survival mechanism forced upon them by inadequate housing. So the reality is that one has to borrow money to pay for the money they have borrowed before. So this cycle continues and continues and continues. And one, at the end of the day, when you go for the assessment at micro lenders, this person is literally in abject poverty. If we have to now bring in this assessment, affordability assessment with the Consumer Act, it is a nice one. If we have it that having that people are borrowing and borrowing, at the end of the day, we will not be having anybody borrowing money because they do not qualify that. So we should now find ways on where to balance the situation here. So the lending scape has three tiers: the commercial banks, the asset bank credits, the FNB, standard banks, require collateral, formal employment records, generally inaccessible to low-income earners. So if I'm earning 5,000, I must forget it to go to the commercial bank unless I have an idea to ask to give a proposal, and then they support my business. And then the formal one, the second one, which is category 2, the formal corporate micro lenders. The primary concern is that they use state payroll deduction codes to guarantee repayments, effectively de-risking their entire portfolio at public expense. And then we have the third category, the informal Shylocks, unregulated actors operating outside any legal framework, often the most predatory with no accountability mechanism whatsoever. Listening to the guys from the Micro Lending Association is that someone gets up and registers the company as a micro lender. At the end of the day, this company is actually a Shylock. It's not registered under them, or they don't facilitate that. So they make the money of the micro lenders, the type of profit the micro lender makes, the Shylocks makes also, but then are they operating ethically according to our structures in place? So they have to be, the Shylocks just have to be, they have to go. So they are not doing good for the economy, having the micro lenders in place. So category 2 is the structural heart of the crisis. And the one parliament has the clearest power to reform. And then we have the state as collection agency problem, now the payroll deduction. So lenders intercept workers before it ever reaches the worker's bank account. The state processes the deduction automatically. And then the zero risk for lenders, repayments is guaranteed. So affordability assessment become a formality, not a safeguard. Market distortion, why offer fair terms when the state ensure you get paid regardless? And then the state collect for free. Government acts as a cost-free debt collection agency for private cooperation. So it's win-win situation here. You're protecting the consumer and the micro lender. So the consumer credit bill, me and my team, we have assessed it. We looked at the affordability assessment. So an assessment, a normal assessment is between a micro lender and a consumer. If they are conducting an assessment, they need to know the consumer's income. They need to know the monthly expenses, the rent, the food, the transport, the school, existing debts and loans, repayments, to avoid them keep borrowing from keep borrowing, and then at the end of the day they don't even keep record of how many loans they have gotten over the time. So, and then the assessment also has to see the credit history, the statements, how much money goes in and out of this bank account. Is this bank account really safe enough to get a loan? And then financial stability and employment status. So employment status, you belonging to the public, to the civil service, you are a civil servant, so you are employed. But then we need to check, we need how the lenders operate is that, okay, fine, give us your statement. On the statement, there is your boss's number, and then, or your supervisor's numbers. They call the supervisor to confirm that does Claudius work here. So we looked at the Dublin cap. Total default cost cannot exceed the original principal. So stops debt spiraling into permanent servitude. So if we say that a 16% interest that this person is gonna get, it should be that way. There should not be any attachment fees to when I'm getting loans. And then criminal penalties, seizing bank accounts, bank cards, and not bank accounts, seizing bank cards, pins is outlawed. So penalties of up to 10% of turnover for predatory act. So here is the catch. These protections are not only as strong as their enforceability, and that is where the system breaks down the ordinary Namibians. If we exercise this, we need to make sure that the state also facilitates these methods when someone is getting a loan with having agents in place. So
explain again. So it's not as, so you are saying the problem is the enforcement part.
Yes, enforceability.
Yeah. If you can maybe just explain that again.
The protections are not only as strong as their enforceability.
Okay.
And that there is, and that is where the system breaks down for ordinary Namibians.
I get you. Thank you.
And then the legal access gap, rights you cannot afford. The structural barrier. If a lender behaves recklessly, the current law requires the victim to pursue high court litigation to obtain a ruling. So, thank you. So,
Sorry, Honorable Chair. We just through the chairperson. The colleagues from the IT department, please do not leave the venue because we will need your assistance, as I mentioned before. Thank you, Chair.
So,
thank you.
Thank you so much. So the picture is, so with the trust we have a group of young people that we always take outside the Windhoek, group of young people from across Namibia. We get funding and then we get experts that come teach them about policy works, ongoing debates in parliament, and so that young people can have a say. There it's a group of young people having to write posters. So we teach them about democracy, ways to protest, what ways to take for you to conduct a peaceful demonstration. So the parliament's fixed on the structural barriers here is Namfisa. Let's empower Namfisa. Let's shake Namfisa and let's help Namfisa. On the motion, I've read that Namfisa is... So on the motion here, I've read that Namfisa's jurisdiction is limited in enforcement and data gathering on non-traditional credits, and then the the English is me. The regulatory ability, Namfisa is the key regulator but lacks full oversight power. So it's not a matter to, condemn Namfisa, it's actually to empower Namfisa. We have seen a problem, so let's tackle this problem to get a solution out of the problem. So that is my thing for Namfisa. So empower Namfisa or ombudsman. When we're talking about money, when we're talking about resources, we're also talking about rights here. Someone being independent and they are not under a system whereby they lose value. So an ombudsman to act as a placement there to facilitate, not Namfisa and micro lenders will be there to facilitate the loan, but then ombudsman is also there to protect when a micro lender pursue high court litigation to obtain a ruling. So the socio-economic reality is that a worker earning 1.3 per month cannot out-litigate a well-capitalized corporation with a legal team. So ombudsman would act perfect there. LAC can also be another good option, but then ombudsman is, the go-to guy here for human rights in Namibia. So the result is consumer rights exist on paper, but are structurally unenforceable for the poor. Pathways for reform. We have option A and option B. So option A says that abolish payroll deduction, reintroduce a genuine market risk for lenders, and state-backed collection for private profit, and then careful, it may trigger a credit crunch for dependent workers. And then we have option B. The statutory net play floors guarantees a subsistence, example, a 40% take home. That if I'm paid, I know that there is a 40% that I'm taking home. And with the payroll deduction, nobody can come and take that I own. I'm protecting the micro lender, or we are here to protect the micro lender and the consumer. So 40% should take home. People are living. People don't grow money from trees. So, and then simple to automate through existing payroll softwares. Lenders may extend loan terms to compensate. So our position here is that option A sends the strongest structural signal, but option B is the most immediately actionable safeguard. Parliament should consider both in sequence. Option C, the UBIC, the deeper cure, it has been an ongoing debate. If a loan is de-risked by the payroll, the interest rate must reflect that. A cap of prime plus% for payroll secured loans is both fair and economically rational. The universal basic income grant. Full scale up and universalize current cash transfer mechanism into an unconditional national universal basic income grant. In Omitara, we have done the case studies, and it was nice that the motion came in while we were doing research, and we discovered when we had our when we had our case study in Omitara that 36% of people living in Omitara, 36%, they were relieved from their household debt. So the basic income grant, it's something that is there to keep the economy as well stable, because everybody is receiving money from the government. So funding should not be structurally secure, should be structurally secure through progressive luxury wealth taxes, inheritance taxes, and dividend redistribution from Namibia's expanding green energy and natural resources sectors. Systematically extinguishing the structural necessity for high-cost survivalist borrowing. Evidence from pilot programs shows that the basic income grant reduces household debt over 36%. This is not a welfare, it's an economic infrastructure. Having found resources, I think the resources should belong to the people. It's not that it's when it's in the swell, it's ours. When it's outside the swell, it's the guys that have taken the well out. It has to belong to the people. It is our land here that we're speaking of. So we are entitled to that. So our final recommendation to Parliament is that amend the credit bill, empower NAMFISA again, or an ombudsman to make binding rules on reckless lending. No High Court required. The dual lock system, lower interest cap for payroll deduction loans, and then 40% Doc 2, which is now the automated 40% take-home pay floor in payroll software. And then option 3 is recommendation number 3 is the debt consolidation fund, a state facility to buy out high interest micro loans and consolidate them into low interest development loans, freeing workers from debt traps. And then universalize the basic income grant. Fund through luxury wealth taxes and natural resources dividend. Eliminate the structural need for survival borrowing once and for all. Stop protecting the rent extraction of lenders. Start protecting the disposable income of Namibian families. And I so submit the leaders.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Irwako and your team. Yeah. Maybe they should also introduce themselves before we start the conversation. Maybe you can introduce your team members as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Claudius Irwako. This is Naria Komba. This is Krista Shapaka, and that's Everett Peters. These are representatives from the Comrades Association. Everett is the executive director of the youth organization. Krista is the chairperson, and Naria is the research madam of the organization.
Mm-hmm. So what's the organization called? Because you are here as
the Economic and Social Justice Trust. Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's the same organization.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, very good. No, thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation. So we look forward to a continuous conversation with you. We are happy that young people such as yourself have an interest in policy matters such as this one. Mm-hmm. We commend you for that.
Thank you so much.
Honorable members, so we have heard from Mr. Gavaset. We have heard from the economic justice people, the young people here. So do we have any question or comments with regard to their submission? Yes, Honorable Antenya.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And thank you, the youthful presenter, Irako, and obviously Mr. I forgot his name. Kawasep. Yes. For the insight presentation. And I think both being representatives of the consumers, you have really, more especially on this presentation, ironed out the possible recommendations, which are very much brilliant. And I should acknowledge that and credit you for those brilliant recommendations, because one of it, the removal of the deduction a source by micro lenders, I think is something that the outcry and everywhere, the question comes, how do we allow a deduction from the source directly? As you are indicating, it seems government also, it's now playing as if they are the debt collectors on behalf of certain individuals. And yet they still that severe consequences that comes with, more especially on now over-indebtedness that we are talking about. Now, the other aspect I think that I want really to, on the aspect of the requirements, possibly, the requirements of that micro lenders that ask the borrowers, this what the commercial banks asks. Yes, we understand there's those differences, but you realize that the commercial banks would do a comprehensive affordability assessment, that at times the loan that you'd want to ask or borrow actually is a bit, it's even, you know, attached to a certain collateral, right? But here on the micro lenders, as long as you can show proof of income, a pay slip, or to say I'm working for this ministry, or I'm working for this company, you are welcome. There's no detailed assessment on the affordability. As much as I have monthly income, it doesn't mean I can afford every kind of a product. So I think I want you to possibly as well unpack that part from your side as consumers. What do you think? Do you think the micro lenders, as we are now saying, we must even amend the credit bills and all other legislations? Do you think we should also strengthen the requirements and affordability criteria for micro lenders? As much as we know, surely, that access to credit is very much important. But looking at the situation in which we find ourselves now, possibly that part needs also to be strengthened, so that it's not about how much is the big money for that matter. Because a person, you give an example, a cleaner, for instance, who works for the government, yes, have a proof of income, he works for the government, and he gets this 3,000 or 4,000 takes home. The issue of how much and the fact that you have a source of income should not be attached to say that you can afford every amount or debts that can be given to you. So I want you to possibly give us your take on that one. The last one is, you have also spoken about the interests and the charges possibly to be regulated, which is quite a very interesting thing, Chairperson, that I want to comment as a recommendation from the young people in the midst. With that, Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mtinge. Honorable Jonas, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I will start with Namibia Consumer Trust. I'll be very brief. Thank you very much for your presentation. The first one, I think I was not really getting much of the activities around consumer protection from Namibia Consumer Trust in details. yes, we understand NAMFISA. I think we all agree that NAMFISA somehow, is contributing to the crisis where we are. But as a non-profitable organization, what are your activities around consumers' protection in terms of the subject we are busy with now? Because I was not really getting much. Maybe you can just, in summary, talk to us what are the activities. Yes, we understand you are a non-profitable organization, but then what are those activities aligned to the name of the organization you represent? The second one, any other organizations do consumer education, on any activities which you around the consumer protection, because I think that is your core mandate, I want to believe. And then maybe also talk to us about what do you think about the consumer credit bill, which is currently in circulation? Are you involved? What are your views around that as an organization? And then I will come to the young men. How's Herbert?
Herbert is fine.
You don't have to answer now.
Okay.
Okay. I think you have already spoken about NAMFISA. I don't want to repeat that. Your views on NAMFISA, I think it's very clear. It's a question I had. You were sitting when we were talking to the Michael Renders Association. I'll call you as an activist organization, a watchdog kind of. What is your views on the position being a representative of both parties? Do you think that the consumers are really protected by the representative Michael Renders Association of Namibia? Are they doing much? Because you said you were doing an assessment. Have you also looked at their work, what they are doing in terms to make sure that they make sure that, whatever laws, policies they have in place are also protecting the borrowers in the process? Just your views on that. And then do you also think that as a country we are doing enough to address the issue of responsible borrowing as individuals? Is there enough information out there to educate people that when you are borrowing, make sure that you are borrowing for a purpose? I asked questions to the representative of the industry, and I think I did not get an answer. But what is your view as an activist organization? Because I have not really seen much happening, but maybe you can talk to us if you have done an assessment. If you're not done, maybe also the same question I'll put it to the Namibia Consumer Trust. And also, you are aware that the Labour Act is under review. The Labour Act, yeah. I'm trying now to understand, or maybe it's me who's confused, but I need you to help me. Chairperson, just quick. This is my last intervention. The Labour Act talk about the third of an employee's salary in terms of the deduction. You are talking about the 40% access to credit, the two of them. Can you talk to us on that, the two of them? Are they aligned, or is it individual? Or maybe it's me who's a bit confused. Yeah? I want to understand. The 40% credit, access to credit is very related to what? Is it an individual that I have access to 40% to get credit? But when it comes to the workplaces, there's a cap of the third, that the employer cannot deduct my 2/3 of a salary, which is more favorable than the 40%, or maybe it's me who's confused in the process.
You're right.
Chairperson.
You are right. You are right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he just wants to. He wants to push up the threshold. We'll come to you. We'll come to you. Honorable Nashinga, do you have your hand up?
Yeah. Mine is just a quick one on the absence of, with all these challenges, yet we don't have a law that is protecting the interests of the consumer. The bill is still collecting dust, and our neighbors and others in our jurisdiction, I think they are ahead. Don't you think if we had that law in place, I think which is was already somehow 96% done around 2018, and up to now there's no progress. Don't you think it is also contributing to the realities on the ground at this point in time? It's for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Itope.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My question is to Master Riwako on protection. What protection are needed to ensure that salary deduction for loans repayment do not leave workers without sufficient income for basic living? The second question is to the Director. Master Director, how does the Namibia Consumer Trust monitor and address complaints against lending institutions that charge interest late and hidden fee? Thank you.
Very good. I believe those are the questions for now. So maybe we can start with the senior, Mr. Gawase.
Thank you, Chairman, and the honorable members of the committee. I overheard when the interaction between the previous presenters and the committee, when the issue of if the micro lenders are also representing consumer interests, I think they wouldn't be, or they should not be able to represent consumer interests because of the inherent conflict of interest. Theirs is more the concern to make profit. So because of that reason, they won't be able to represent consumer interest. Now, with regard to, and I can maybe link the question asked by Honorable Ims, the lack of, you see, the committee unfortunately has to work within the motion and the agenda or the issue at hand. But there's a very important question that needs to be looked at. Why do people borrow money in the first place? Is it not because there are other issues that are not addressed? For example, we know that Namibia, staple food in Namibia is maize, mahangu, and wheat. And the price is fixed between the producer, the farmer, and the marketer. The Indongo Group, Namib Mills, and so on. They determine the price. It's not the market. And we know that the elderly and children who consume mango and maize, some of whom are also supported by government, that money is going to these people. And it's unfair, but they are exempted from the Competition Act, same as lawyers and others, which also means that when lawyers are exempted, it means people don't have access to justice. And from the Namibia Consumer Trust position is that consumers must be empowered to fight for themselves. We can only do that through engaging on policy level, enticing the legislature in the rest of the state to put instruments in place to enable that. That's basically, with regard to the consumer credit bill, I think it was so short notice. I haven't really looked into, but one can always look into that and make an effort to give input. I'm sorry, I missed your last question. You mind to maybe just...
How do you protect consumers? Maybe you can just repeat, Honorable, the topic.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Master Director, the question is like this. How does the Namibian Consumer Trust monitor and address the complaint against lending institutions that charge excessive interest rate and hidden fees?
Okay. No, thank you for the question. No, we don't really monitor that. Like, consumer protection is the function of the state. The state must protect it. I think it's NAMFISA's duty to do that, to monitor and take measures to protect consumers. And maybe just to answer the honorable member's question, if we collaborate with unions and so on. We do. There used to be, you see, the civic space has shrunk in the meantime over the years. It's a bit different. During former President Buhamba's time, we had a lot of freedom and there were so many forums. Even the basic income grant they're talking about, it was more vibrant and alive because we had the civic space. I can maybe mention one issue that I tried to raise on email is during the State of the Nation address. Somebody, I don't know if it's a secretary to the National Assembly or I don't think it's a speaker. Members of the public were prohibited to attend the proceedings of the NA because the ambassadors, and I've seen ambassadors from China, Russia, USA, Germany, even Kenya. To me, as a member of public who was denied the right, the constitutional right, to have witnessed the NA having a meeting, I don't see these people as very good friends of Namibia because the constitution was violated to accommodate them. This is something that I would really like the committee to take to the NA. And it's very clear in my presentation that Parliament or National Assembly is completely prohibited. The only instance where members of public can be prevented to attend their proceedings is when a motion is tabled of at least 1/10, that such a motion must be tabled if they agree that thereto. And such a motion must be passed by 2/3 majority, that members of public will not be allowed. I'm sure that did not happen. So the Constituent Assembly was very clear that this right cannot be diminished in any way. But what that also implied is, and I have listed the actual article, the members of the National Assembly are not allowed to alienate themselves from the people that elected them. So that is perhaps something that you need to look at. Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Micah. Yes, Mr. Irwako.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Your question was, should the borrowing restriction be strengthened? Okay, sorry. All right, let me start with Honorable's question, and it's my view whether the protection policy, the protection from Macro Lenders Association of Namibia, are they protecting borrowers in Namibia? But I feel like it should be independent. The consumers and the micro lenders should be independent. And I bought in the notion of having the ombudsman to protect the consumer. And in my notes here, while they were presenting, I wrote that NAMFISA operates independently in the public interest. it is doing that for the public interest. Hence, I said that we need to empower NAMFISA to do a much better job on that, so that the micro lender doesn't seem that it's doing the job of a consumer, the person that's supposed to be protecting the consumer. On the 40%, it was an example that I used. If it's there, if the labor access it, because here my slide says an example of a 40% take home thing. If it's there, then it's perfect. It has to work in according with the consumer credit bill. Should the borrowing risk, my leader, please repeat your question.
Is it Honorable? I'm thinking.
Yes.
What is that?
Your question.
Yeah, my question was around the comprehensive assessments. Sorry. My question was around the comprehensive assessment that the commercial banks do to the borrowers before they approve the loan, vis what the micro lenders do. For instance, it's more comprehensive at the banks,
right?
So that they really ensure that there is affordability of the product.
Yeah.
However, with the micro lenders, it's a matter of showing a receipt, a payslip and so forth. What do you think about that? Do you think, as consumers, do you think that we also need to amend and put more stricter and detailed requirements in order for the micro lender, so that we really safeguard and make sure that those that can be given, those that can really afford, so that we safeguard the consumers?
Yeah. So the consumer credit bill is progress on paper, and the point that I mentioned was that affordability assessment, and because it's on paper, we are actually, if it becomes now a law passed, we are revamping the whole micro lending, this whole lending situation. So yes, we need to look at the affordability assessment here. If it's gonna get the state somewhere, we need to start with actually strong measures that you have a consumer's income, you have a monthly expense. This is what the micro lenders are doing. You have a monthly expense. My brother, person A, what are you gonna use this money for? Do you have a house? Do you have food at your table? We need to, I think, have that in place, the affordability assessment, and then existing loans and debts. We need to have a system with the micro lender whereby I type in Claudius Redwako, oh, here's a loan with Namibia, with Express Credit. So we don't grant him a loan until that loan is paid. Statement and credit history. With the current ones, I agree with you. With the current ones, these whereby they check your 3 months bank statement, your pay slip with a stamp on it, and your ID. That's all you need. But we need to go further than that, because this person has to now pay back your money. So you need to, if you want your money back, you need to make sure that you can get your money back. So you need to have a good assessment before you give someone your money. Oh, my comrades would want to add.
Yes, your comrades are allowed to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Standing on the protocol already established and through the chair, I just also wanted to add onto the conversation of the requirements and the thresholds through which a person can obtain a loan. Now, I think it's also very important to acknowledge that 82% of loans granted by micro lenders are those loans for survival. So those are your payday loans. Those are loans for the everyday survival of the Namibian citizen. So increasing the criteria, to me, doesn't address the fundamental and structural problem that Namibians are facing today. Rather, the question that we are supposed to ask, especially when we look at civil servants, is why does a civil servant servant, an individual with a guaranteed paycheck, often and most times reach out to micro lenders and take out loans to survive. These are not luxury loans for cars and households. 82% of Namibian loans are loans from that of survival. So the deeper structural question that we should ask as Namibians, and I would also urge the committee to look into, is how then can the government or the state help bridge the gap? Because what Namibians are doing right now is trying to bridge the gap between their salary and their everyday basic expenses. And that is stretched out and only possible through these loans. The only reason majority of Namibians do not live on the streets is because majority of Namibians are trapped in the cycle of debt. So the question isn't whether debt is good or bad for Namibians, but the question should rather be how can the state then bridge or help them bridge that gap? And we come here and we present the basic income grant to you, where in the event that the Namibian government cannot provide jobs for the ordinary day Namibian citizen or increase the salary of the civil servant, then there must be an attachment grant to it to say that no, we understand that your 3,000 Namibian dollars cannot afford your house and 5 children and a husband that you need to take care of and children's school fees, but take this 1.5 or take this 2,000 from the government, and we help you we'll help you in that regard. Because it's unfair to expect a Namibian that lives off of a 3,000 to then cater for their five kids, black tax on top of that, and just the struggles of everyday life. So I think the bigger question should be structural rather than just seeing Namibians as experiencing this out-of-body experience, because these are everyday human beings that cry themselves to sleep, that believe prayer or praying for their government leaders will solve some type of problem for them, but consistently they are left behind. Consistently that they are shown that they are not, that debates around their livelihood can just be seen as, oh, is it because of a predator, a micro lender, or is it because of the recklessness of the civil servant, but not the structural issue that comes with why these people are trapped in the cycle of debt. My name is Everett Herman Peters. That was just my contribution to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your contribution. So you raised a very important question that I believe many of us are struggling to understand what is really the driving force. Now, one of the things that you have been saying, and I think it has also been said by the micro lenders, is that, you know, income pressure is a big driver. But I have a puzzle, and I want you to help me to solve this problem. So if I look at the formal economy, employment in the formal economy, I think it's close to about 19%, 20%. That's the employment in the formal economy. The rest is informal. The people who work in the Berlin Street, the people who sell kapana and things like that. I don't think those people have got access to loans, because nobody will give them loans. So it's a very tiny percentage of Namibians who actually have got access to loans. So the income pressure that they face is the same income pressure that the person who's selling kapana is facing. So I think we also need to understand it from that perspective, because if we only think that the problem is the income pressure, then we are leaving out about 80% of the Namibians who don't have access to loans at all. Yeah, so I think that's a very important statistics that we should also look into. I said 19, but I think, of course, my figure may have rusted. But I think last time I checked that informal employment, I think formal employment only accounted for about 19% of total employment. Yeah. So I think that's something I want us to dive deeply into, to really understand. Why is it only unique to the people who are receiving a salary? Is it because of access? And the others who are not receiving a salary do not have access, and maybe that's why they are not highly indebted. So as researchers, if you can help us to solve that problem as well, and look into it. I think the credit bill is something that we all need. it's something that has started some times ago. Mr. Kavaseb and I were in the engine room that when that discussion started. I was chairing the advisory body that he was talking about. He was a member, and that's where the conversation started. We need to have a comprehensive consumer protection bill that protects everybody. Yeah, when I was at the Ministry of Finance, I think about 2 years ago, that's when we approved the policy before the drafting started. Yeah, so understand that there is now a draft, and I'm happy that you are all contributing to that draft. So I wanted to ask you whether this suggestion that you are making in terms of not forcing consumers who are complaining about mistreatment or something like that should not go to courts, but there should be somebody, an institution where they can go to, either NAMFISA or the Ombudsman. Have you made a submission in that respect? Because it's a very important submission.
No, I haven't made a submission, but I have written it on my submission that I sent to the Secretariat. To the committee.
Okay.
So, but then having it independently, it will be something good to look into too.
Yeah, I agree with you that if you force them to go to courts, courts are expensive.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, they will not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So we must find a cheaper way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's best through Ombudsman with the NAMFISA, just like the micro lenders are working with with NAMFISA and the financial literacy. So both the consumer and the micro lenders, they have a common body, and it is NAMFISA to regulate everything at the end of the day. But the consumers should be independently protected by an individual who is independent from the state also, yeah.
Very good. So unless there are final questions from the members? Any final question from the members? Otherwise, we wrap up.
Yeah.
Honorable Nashingi, yes. You have a question?
It's more of a comment, but let me...
You can make your comment and then wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Mine really, since you colleagues are more involved, I'm really just looking at how we must deal with fellow citizens who are finding themselves in this situation, is to say, because the state has an obligation to make sure that the livelihood of its people is better off. And now you look at these indebted people, there is literally no way out because there is no system in place to either rehabilitate or look at their situations, and also with the borrower, with the lender involved. Maybe it's a conversation that we should have and say what can be done to assist and help, because at the end of the day, Honorable Willem or Justina touched on the issue of suicide, for example. So the issue at the end of the day is not only being indebted, but other issues comes after that. So I think there is also a conversation as citizens to start looking into perhaps what else that we can put in place to assist in a long run moving. But also, scientifically so, we need to have our numbers right and say, because to say most people is just, they go and borrow to consume.
Yeah.
But what are the numbers? I'm not too sure if we are correct on that. As I said earlier, if I'm a lender, how do I know that you are coming to borrow to pay for your child's school or to go to the hospital? What are the mechanisms in place? Maybe I'm coming to borrow to go and gamble, and my debts continue piling up, hoping tomorrow Lady Luck will come on my way and get something better so that I can go and close all those holes. So it's a real challenge, and I think as citizens collectively so, we need to find a long-lasting solution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. So, Honorable Wamtinga, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Honorable.
Yeah, Chairperson,
Jonas
I think
also. Okay, let's keep it brief.
considering that we have young people that are in here, and really most of the people that are also suffering, they got into the cycles of debts at their early age of working. And possibly while we are now then looking at doing our work in terms of changing legislation, possibly how do we also engage and look at, evaluate their curriculum, our education curriculum from grade 4, from grade whatsoever, if it's really addressing and preparing us for financial literacy. If then we can also amend and adjust our curriculum so that it gives us that training, those soft skills. In fact, we must not even consider it as soft skills, but rather be really some kind of a requirement, the same way we came up with life skills, but I don't see much in that curriculum. I haven't seen much on financial literacy. And even at our university, most of you should be at your university, if not so. It must not only be an economist and accountant that should have an understanding of financial literacy. However, if across, when you get to the university, we are taught contemporary social issues, but there is nothing of a financial literacy there. If we can also look into that area so that it becomes really a requirement for every person coming through our education system that must have an understanding of financial literacy. The other aspect that I also want you, possibly as you represent the consumers, how best can we also look into the support or mental support, psychological support to those that are currently really suffering due to these high debts? What can we organize ourselves to identify and even call for those that are suffering that way to come out so that they can be supported with the psychological support? And possibly, how do the government institutions also identify these people? And statistic-wise, who are they and what measures are they to support them? They are already in the crisis. We need to rescue them. Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Honorable Jonas?
I think, Chair, I'm covered by Honorable Bellem
Very
on
good.
the issue of financial literacy.
Very good, very good. Yes, last words from both of you.
Let me
Yeah,
start.
you-
Let me
you-
start.
you can start.
The financial literacy, Honorable, you are right. It should be integrated in our education system, whereby a young person is being told about financial literacy. But then we have now the ones that are in debt. They know nothing about financial literacy. We should also have, we are tackling the issue of debt within civil servant. We have NIPAM for venue to give us a good financial literacy to the language that appeals to them. Don't bring an economic language here and you're telling us this and that in your language. It should be in a language that appeals to the public servant themselves. That's how I would see the issue of financial literacy. My comrade will add something. Sorry, Honorable Chair.
No, please, they are welcome. Yeah, press the other one. If that one is not working, just try the other one. Yeah.
It's
Yeah?
on?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Please allow me to stand on the protocol that was already established. My name is Krista Lapakashaya Shapaka, and I serve as the Commerce Association chairperson and also a political science student. And I think most of us here are political science students, and therefore I can answer with conviction when I say that CSOs are very important when it comes to education across the board. In as much as we also need to, inject this into our public schools and our curriculum, it is also very important that we tackle those that are excluded from the curriculum, those that are no longer in grade 4, but also are in this crisis. So unfortunately, a CSO is only as powerful as its funding. The Comrades Association has done so much in ensuring that we take young people out of even Windhoek just to empower them. But unfortunately, we don't have the funding necessarily to make sure that we take all the young people of this country along on that journey. And it's very important that also when we come to these institutions, that not only do we represent our organization's interests, but that we also make sure that we are the faces of the young people that are in those very locations that you've mentioned, Honorable Chairperson, in the Evelyn Street, in the Katutura, in the Keetmanshoop, Seyplachte, all of those young people that can't be here today to represent what they actually need. When it comes to the issue of mental health, it's I stand with my comrade over here when he says that it's very important that we make sure that there's a language that speaks to this, and which young people, or not young people alone, but the consumers can actually understand. And not necessarily the venues, but also we need to understand that it's not why people borrow. Because even if you teach people not to borrow in the difference between good and bad debt, there will always be a need for that borrowing. Therefore, the conversation should be centered around the structural problems that cause people to borrow. And I think that will cause us to go into a never-ending rabbit hole if we try to understand why and why not they should not borrow or why they should borrow. So I think it's very important that we empower our CSOs with the information, and also that the state also holds our hand in this regard. Within political science, it's very important for us to empower the CSO. And we know this because this is something that has been repeated in our curriculum. And therefore, also when it comes to financial literacy, not just in life skills, because we do understand what the Namibian child's idea of life skills is, but that we make sure that modules or subjects like economics, like accounting, that those ones are compulsory up until you finish high school, or that some level of that information finds itself, whether you are a science student, whether you are a geography student, at the end of the day. I think, do you want to add?
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Comrade
Mr. Peters
Chairperson
must not intimidate you.
Okay.
I will give him a chance.
Right.
Just finish.
Okay, I think
just continue with your intervention, and then we will yield to him.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I feel very empowered right now as a woman. Thank you so much. Yes, but to sum up, Comrade Chairperson, not Comrade Chairperson, but Honorable Chairperson, apologies. It would just be to empower the CSO, such as Comrades Association. We have young people in Swakopmund today that are going to elect the next representatives for the National Youth Council, the biggest institution that brings most of the over 14 regions together. And through those institutions, really you can have a voice where young people can actually be empowered, and where the faces that we do not reach can actually be reached. And I think that would just also require the Economic Standing Committee to also hold the hands of these young people, to ensure that young people and consumers are empowered, so that even when we come from our internships, even when we come from universities, that we also know the difference between good and bad debt. With regards to mental health, Honorable Chairperson, I would just like to end off to say that it is very important that we understand that this is a real reality in Namibia, and that people do not borrow, and whether or not people borrow for alcohol and drug abuse, it's also very important that we understand that these households, actually, that we have Namibians that live in households where they actually have to cater for people with just a $3,000 salary. And it's very important that when we do empower our state clinics through the mental health bill that was recently passed, if I'm not mistaken, that when they have these social workers and psychologists, that they are aware of these things, because it is hard already. We do understand that we have a mental health problem, especially amongst men, and it's very important that we have this conversation in Men's Mental Health Month, because it's amongst men that really these suicide cases are reported because of societal pressures. So that conversation must be kept alive, not only in a therapist's office, but also in school, so that both the girl and the boy child can understand when they are putting pressures onto each other, so that these crises or this borrowing can also be reduced in some way. I so submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shapaka. So, honorable members, we have heard we must support the CSOs.
Full time.
Yeah, and the young people.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, So yeah, we have heard you. So it's important that we work together. Yeah, the civil society organizations and ourselves as parliamentarians, because you are representing the people, and we are there for the people. So we have to. Mr. Peters?
So sorry, I just wanted to help Honorable Chair with the puzzle you put us with, because we don't know when we'll be granted with your presence again. But I think it's also very important. It's a thought in politics. I'm also a political science student that I like, that says that humans by nature, or humans are infrastructure. Where city planning and city states fail, humans come in and bridge that gap. So it's to us when Honorable Chair asked if it's 19% of the formal workforce that makes up majority of the debt within the country. We must understand that that is the unaccounted for debt within the country. We must understand that this route does not start and end within our civil servants, or even just with our private sector employees and employers, but it's run so deep that even the everyday normal person will come and say, but, oh, hi friend Lapaka, can you please borrow me your $20 because I don't have kept money for tomorrow? That's how the system roots itself from the bottom up. And I think even the concept of even wanting the committee to fight for over-regulation of the informal sector, again, will not solve the issue at hand when it comes to how accessible are these funds to individuals, or even in general, how is the political space or the economic space granted for those individuals to empower themselves in meaningful ways. Even the meme at Stop and Shop cries every night because she does not know where her next stock will come from, because she has given 50 bags of her fat cakes or 50 bags of her potatoes, 50 bags of her potatoes to a customer that said that a customer that said they will pay end of the month. So I think those are the conversations that we should have, and also separate the formal and the black market, we call it in economics. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Very good, very good. And last one we have before we go to Mr. Kavasep. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Lydia Uzombala. I'm a public service member. Master Chair, thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Vermantenya. Thank you for all Parliament member. It is very quite interesting topic when it's come for public service, low income. I was very interested. I was follow. Yeah, it is very. For the title, I'm a senior cleaner. I started as a cleaner, Katutura Hospital. When I started, my best salary was 2,300. If you plus housing and transport, 3,000. I seconded him when he said maybe government must increase people so that they can be afford. When I look my 3,000 when I was a cleaner, is a petrol for someone, maybe it's a lunch for someone. It is not like we want to go to rent money, we want to go cash loan, or in trepo. The situation forcing us to go there. And again, I was followed every morning when Honorable Antenya said, it will finish, the base rep will finish and the bricks listed. And then go to your colleague, help me, I can reach a month end, help me. When your pays come, it is going making the debt. Maybe how government think about this situation. I was following like some people, I'm having a proof, people they are left job because they are paid rep nothing. They go back in street cannot make it, the life. I be a senior cleaner current moment. My salary now 4,000, but it cannot afford house, it cannot afford taxi, transport money, it cannot. But when you had increment of transport 2028, but yet here we are struggling. The tax transport is increasing while my salary is very low. Maybe grade 15, grade 14 must be taking off And maybe cleaner must start at grade 13, senior cleaner maybe grade 12. It could be possible. Our headmaster just said, kapana, kapana. Kapana, even those people, they are selling at Stop and Shop, Korea, Havana. They are struggling because it's us who have to support them to raise their economy. In short, maybe I think like this. What if maybe the government come up with a program for education, the raw income in the public servant, before not go visiting in the airport? How to use the money, how to save the money, how it is saved. Even now at my payslip, it looks like nice clear of debt, but I still recycle whoever is deducted me. But sometimes people, they are hanged themselves because debt. They cannot afford to pay a school fee for their children, for their family. If you look at that 200, 300, I was crying. And then I was very thin. Is my mother need the support for that money? My transport money, my children money, the lending that I'm lending, food for the kid, nothing I left it. It will force me maybe say, what is the use? Let me leave this job. In short, and at conclusion, I don't want to make a lot of. I'm happy to have Member of Parliament here with us. They are setting rules. Please revile out, following up how people they are surviving in the public servant. They are going there, they are crying. Now, Lesoko, even me, I was visiting, Lesoko say, no, we cannot give you money because until you pay out of this, then you come as when it's 2023, where I'm suffering. Thank you very much for this. We must look at this seriously, and we must very seriously. How? So that we can protect our people, the people that brought you to be here, and the rest. Keep up, Master Vero. I'm happy for this hearing public service. Keep up, Meme, Jonas. Even I was happy. I used to go there and there, and the Master Chair, even to their village, he used to help them. Even my Justina, he used to help people in the community. I don't want to forget this. Me, myself, I decide because 4,000 cannot satisfy my need, my family, the whole entire. I make my backyard garden for spinach. When I knock off, I go in the location set out so that I can bring something on the table, the bread of my family. Maybe we must come up in that program and teach whoever so that meet the government also. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for finding the courage to come and share with us your experience. I don't think we had her name. Did she? Njobala, okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Njobala, for sharing your experience with us. We certainly appreciate that information, and it's information that has empowered the committee. Going forward, we are going to take that information into account and the suggestions that you have given us. We will take that into consideration. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Gavasep, your last words?
Chairman, I'll be very brief. Just on somebody mentioned support of civil society. We know that some of them, it depends on government priority. For example, NCCI is getting 500,000 from Ministry of Finance of Education and so on. So maybe they have a chance to, and I think the agenda is a bit narrow. I would encourage the honorable members of NA to, I don't know what, if somebody would maybe table the next motion. We need a comprehensive consumer protection law to address other issues, because it has to be, somebody mentioned mental health, and she spoke about gardening, and I'm also a gardener. And this one thing garden can do to you, once you enter, you are not only producing healthy food, but it also addresses mental needs. So maybe it's something that we need to encourage, as long as we tell the municipality to provide compost and so on, which they are legally required to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me thank our presenters, Mr. Govasev and Mr. Rirwako and his team of young people for your submissions. Certainly, you have helped us to, highlight some of the issues that the committee needs to consider as to how do we address this problem of indebtedness, especially in the public service. Again, we not going to stop here. This is a national agenda, and so we may come back to you. So if we invite you back again for more suggestions and recommendations, we don't feel that we are abusing you. So we appreciate the fact that you volunteered your time to come here and share with us your ideas, including all the other members who are here, or all the other members of the public who are here. We also appreciate the fact that you could come. And those who are following online through the live streaming of NBC, that we also want to thank and commend for helping us to share this dialogue with the rest of the nation. NBC, we appreciate the fact your willingness to be able to be the voice of the nation and helping us to share this information and this dialogue with the rest of the population. So this is going to continue. The discussion is going to continue. This is not the last public hearing. We will make information available going forward as to when are we going to have the next public hearing. And obviously, because it's a public hearing, all members of public are encouraged to watch and follow. And unfortunately, we'll not be able to accommodate everybody here. But those of you who are able to join can join through, by following the live stream. And those of you who are in Windhoek and are able to join us here, there's some space here. We can always accommodate those who will want to have a physical presence here. With that, we are going to stop here today, and then, as I said, we will inform the public as to when we are going to have the next public hearing. Thank you very much.